Chapter 41-23. Seeing that Xianxia was asking about Natalia, Hua Jin replied, "Yeah, Natalia is taking an afternoon nap. Kids don't have energy if they don't take an afternoon nap." Yu looked at Xianxia and then at Hua Jin. Seeing that the two of them had different expressions, she didn't know what they were thinking about. Hua Jin sized up Yu and carefully probed, "You are, idiot, I'm Yu." Yu rolled her eyes adorably. "Can't you recognize me?" Hua Jin answered honestly, "I really can't recognize you." Yu glanced in the direction of the bedroom, pursed his lips and said, "That guy must have made a mess in the kitchen, right?" Everyone could tell that the clumsy guy he was referring to was Gong Fan. When Hua Jin heard this, he immediately said, "I've already tidied up the kitchen." But Natalia seems very disappointed that she didn't get to eat dessert. "It's okay." Yu moved her wrists and smiled at Hua Jin. "I'll get the dessert table ready right away. You don't have to force yourself. Since I've promised, I have to do it. Besides, it's okay. I'm not that clumsy guy." With that, Yu walked into the kitchen. Xianxia said to Gong Jie and Hua Jin, "I'll go and help him." Hua Jin couldn't help but tease her, "I feel that you might not be helping him. You might even cause trouble." When Xianxia heard this, she was instantly unhappy. "Are you looking down on me?" Gong Jie couldn't help but say, "Sis, don't go and cause trouble. Everyone knows that you'll cause more trouble than help when you enter the kitchen." Xiaxia's face turned red. She was angry and embarrassed. Alright. She could only sit down on the sofa obediently. In the afternoon, when it was almost evening, Yu gently placed the last decorative flower on the cake in the kitchen. With that, the dessert counter was successfully completed. Coincidentally, Natalia had just woken up from her afternoon nap. As soon as she walked out of her room, she smelled a sweet fragrance. She couldn't help but follow the aroma to the dining room, only to find that there was a huge dessert table by the dining table. On top, there were biscuits, donuts, small cakes. They were all pink, exquisite and beautiful. Natalia's eyes widened in shock. She didn't expect the dessert table to be completed. This was probably a beautiful surprise. "You're awake?" A voice came from behind. Natalia turned around in confusion. She saw Yu standing behind her with his hands behind his back and a warm smile on his face. "Do you like it?" "You did this?" Yu nodded. "But you," Natalia muttered to herself doubtfully for a moment and tried to sound out a name. "Yu?" For some reason, Yu suddenly froze. He suddenly asked, "Have you seen him before?" The him he was referring to was Gong Fan. Natalia understood what he meant and nodded. "The one in the morning wasn't you. It was him, right?" Yu nodded. For some reason, his expression changed. He doesn't know how to make desserts. Chapter 41-24. Yu was still puzzled. He suddenly asked, "How do you know about him?" Natalia was stunned. Indeed, no one had mentioned Gong Fan to her. Even Gong Jie and Hua Jin had never mentioned Yu's double identity disorder to her. Natalia pursed her lips and immediately said, "I can tell that you're like me, right?" Yu narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at her deeply. However, he did not say anything in the end. Instead, he hid the suspicion in his eyes and changed the topic. He turned around and asked, "Do you like the dessert table I made?" Natalia walked over slowly and looked at the desserts on the dessert rack. She asked happily, "Can I eat it now?" "This is a gift I made for you. It depends on whether you're willing to try it." Yu was a gentleman. His every word and action were like that of a noble son who had been educated in etiquette. Natalia said sweetly, "Of course. I love desserts the most." As she spoke, she carefully picked up a donut and couldn't wait to put it into her mouth. Yu looked at her quietly. There was no trace of emotion on his face. It was as if he was only concerned about whether she liked the dessert he made. "Is it good?" "Yes." "Is it as good as the one you ate at the amusement park last time?" Natalia said, "This must be the best dessert I've ever had in the world. There's no other dessert like it." She asked curiously, "Have you learned how to bake before?" "I read books and tried to make it myself." "So good." Natalia blushed again and said, If I want to eat it again in the future, will you still be willing to make it for me? Of course. If you want to eat it, I can make it any time. Okay, then it's a deal. Natalia smiled and took a bite of the donut. She wanted to try all the desserts on the dessert rack before she stopped. Yu looked at her without a trace. His gaze fell on her face, but there was no change in his expression. After dinner, Yu and Xianxia went home. As for the Gong Jie, it was the evening schedule. After dinner, he gave a few instructions to Jin and left. Before they left, Natalia was still reluctant to leave. She hugged him and refused to leave. Jin stood by the side and watched. Gong Jie naturally couldn't bear to part with her, so she coaxed her gently and promised that she would come back as soon as possible. Only then did Natalia let go of her hand and let her go. Even after Gong Jie had left for a long time, Natalia was still standing by the window. Under the cold moonlight, the side of her face seemed to be covered with a layer of silver. After finishing a glass of champagne, Jin finally stood up and walked to Natalia's side. All of a sudden, he reached out and gently closed the window. Natalia looked up at him in surprise. Jin said slowly, "It's getting cold. The wind is too strong. Don't catch a cold." Natalia couldn't hide the disappointment in her eyes. She turned around and walked back to her room dejectedly. Jin looked at her back in silence. Finally, he couldn't suppress the suspicion in his heart. He took a deep breath and suddenly spoke. "Who are you?" His voice was very soft. Even if a needle fell to the ground, it would be able to drown out his voice. However, Natalia heard it very clearly. Her back stiffened. Chapter 41:25. Who am I? Natalia was obviously amused by his question. She turned around gracefully, her skirt fluttering in a beautiful arc. She smiled with her hands behind her back, as cute as a doll. "I'm Natalia. You know my name." Jin took a step closer to her and asked seriously again, "Who are you?" Natalia was not stunned, nor did she find his question strange. Instead, she sized him up with a smile. She suddenly took a step closer to him. "You're so interesting." Jin pursed his lips. Now, there were only two people in front of him. There was no one else. Jin voiced all the doubts in his heart. "You don't seem to be Natalia." Natalia smiled but did not say anything. "Oh, you're deliberately imitating her, but you can't imitate her temperament. Natalia is very elegant and polite, but she doesn't like to talk. She's afraid of strangers, but she's very careful. You, on the other hand, don't fit in with her at all." Although Jin had only spent a few days with Natalia, he knew that she was too simple-minded. She was as simple as a piece of unpolished jade without any decorations. Simple and easy to understand. So much so that after spending a few days with her, Jin naturally understood her habits and personality characteristics. Moreover, he was a very sensitive person. Therefore, he could easily tell that the person in front of him was not Natalia. "I heard that Natalia has two personalities." Jin said seriously, "One is called Natalia, but the other one, no one knows until now. So, who are you?" Natalia looked at him with a smile and did not answer directly. Instead, she said lightly, "Natalia has two personalities. One is called Natalia." She walked softly to the window. She did not look at Jin. Instead, she looked at the fog on the window and looked at the bright moon through the window. The moon was as bright as frost. Pouring into the windowsill, there was an inexplicable sense of coldness. She gently placed her hands on the window and lowered her eyes. The moonlight flowed down along her eyelashes. There was an indescribable elegance, but at the same time, indifference. Natalia doesn't like to talk. She's timid and afraid of strangers, but she draws very well. She likes to sing and listen to other people sing. She has no sense of security, so she trusts others easily and gets hurt easily. After a pause, she used her fingertips to elegantly draw on the window. Her dark red lips actually had a touch of flirtatious beauty. Like a fairy. It also looked like an elf. So, she gradually learned to protect herself and stopped trusting others easily. That's why she doesn't have any friends, but she does have friends. "I'm her friend." "You're her friend?" Jin frowned and asked suspiciously, What's your name? Could it be Natalia's other personality? Natalia looked back at him and narrowed her eyes slightly. Hua Jin's tone became gentle. It was not intentional, but he felt that the Natalia in front of him seemed to be a little wary and guarded. He seemed to have interpreted it wrongly and thought that she was insecure. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. Chapter 41:26. She suddenly tiptoed. Even though she was not wearing a dance dress or shoes, the moment she tiptoed, the back of her foot straightened up and she stood up like a swan. She glanced at Hua Jin from the corner of her eye. She twirled her steps slightly and the hem of her dress fluttered like a butterfly's wings. She dances very well. I think she has a talent in this area. Even if she doesn't have a teacher to teach her, she looks very good when she dances. In the dead of the night, she likes to stand on the balcony of the hospital, facing the wind like a swan. Natalia slowly stretched out the tip of her foot and stepped lightly on the floor. It was light, but it was as if the tip of her foot was touching the surface of a river. There were no ripples. Her dance steps were light and graceful. It was so elegant that it was hard to take one's eyes off her. Hua Jin furrowed his eyebrows slightly. He probed, "So, you're Natalisa, her second personality?" Natalia turned around and looked at him deeply. Suddenly, her lips curled into a smile. There was a hint of contempt in her smile. She asked slowly, "Who told you that she has dual personality?" Hua Jin was stunned. He did not know what she meant by that. Natalia did not have dual personality. The girl in front of him, was she Natalia or Natalisa? "Oh, for you." The girl smiled. There was a hint of evil in her eyes. "I'm not Natalia, and I'm not Natalisa. I'm the emissary." Emissary? Hua Jin was even more confused. Emissary, what was that? His tone was a little heavy. "For you. I'm in charge of managing this body." The girl lowered her head and looked at her hand. She raised it gently and examined it elegantly. She smiled. "I can see them, but they can't see me. I'm the emissary created by Professor Romanka. I'm in charge of maintaining the balance between the personalities. If any of the personalities are disobedient, I have the right to chase them to the land of exile." Hua Jin's eyes revealed a hint of shock. It was not because of what she said, but because of the coldness that flashed in her eyes. It made one's blood run cold. Does the Gongjie know about this? Then, where's Alice? Did she know the truth about Natalia? What did Romanka do to this girl? What emissary? Hua Jin was a little confused. "I don't understand what you mean." He wondered if he should call Alice later and ask her what a messenger meant. The girl obviously saw through his thoughts and said, "You want to call Alice?" Hua Jin was a little wary. Did this girl have the ability to read minds? Otherwise, how could she see through his thoughts so easily? He said, "Don't let your imagination run wild. Do you know Alice?" "I know her." The girl's expression suddenly turned cold. "I'm warning you, don't ruin my plan. Do you understand? Ruin your plan?" Hua Jin was a little alarmed. "Plan? Oh? You want to know so badly?" The girl suddenly walked in front of him with her hands behind her back. Her eyes were as cold as the moonlight. "You shouldn't know so much. Otherwise, it's very dangerous." "Very dangerous? Very dangerous?" Chapter 41:27. Hua Jin didn't know why, but he seemed to have sensed too many things from her eyes. He immediately took a step back. Just as he turned around, he heard a strange cry of pain behind him. "Don't come over." Hua Jin was shocked and hurriedly turned around. He didn't know why the girl was kneeling on the ground, her hands cupping her ears. "Don't come over." Hua Jin was at a loss for what to do when he heard her hysterical screams. "What's wrong?" He immediately went forward and held her shoulders. He was so worried that he didn't know where to go. "What's wrong with you? Why don't you come over? Did you see anything?" She covered her ears tightly, her whole body trembling violently. Don't talk in my ear. Go away, go away. They're all bad people. Bad people." Hua Jin was scared out of his wits. He didn't know what happened to her body, but he was worried that something was wrong with her. He comforted her gently. I'm here. Don't be afraid. Look at me, look at me. The girl suddenly raised her head. At the same time, almost at the same time, she raised her right hand. Immediately, a pocket watch dangled from her palm. Click! The surroundings suddenly became extremely quiet, leaving only the sound of the pocket watch's hands moving. It was clear and rhythmic. Hua Jin subconsciously looked at the pocket watch dangling in front of his eyes. Because of this pocket watch, his vision seemed to be blended together and gradually became blurry. He tried to calm his mind and look away. However, his eyes seemed to be firmly attracted by the pocket watch, and there was no room for him to retreat. This pocket watch seemed to have magical powers. However, the little bit of consciousness he had left seemed to remind him. This seemed to be hypnotism. He originally thought that this kind of hypnotism seemed to only be seen in movies and novels. He didn't expect that this kind of hypnotism actually existed in reality. "What's your name?" the girl asked. Hua Jin said numbly, "Rong Jin." "What's my name?" "Messenger." "Wrong." The girl's voice became softer and softer, like a feather. "My name is Natalia. There is no emissary, nor is there a Natalia. Soon I will snap my fingers. After hearing this sound, you will forget everything you heard, everything you should have heard, and everything you shouldn't have heard. You just had a very long dream. When you wake up from the dream, everything will return to reality. What I said will no longer exist." Hua Jin's eyes gradually became hollow. In his eyes, the constantly swinging pocket watch was reflected. The girl looked at his expression and suddenly put away her pocket watch. She reached out and snapped her fingers. "Patter!" Hua Jin's eyelids suddenly drooped powerlessly. His entire body suddenly lost its support, and he softly fainted on the ground, unconscious. The girl squatted beside him and looked at him quietly. After waiting for a long time, she hugged his shoulders and dragged him to the sofa with great effort. She helped him onto the sofa. She took a deep breath, then suddenly stood up and walked downstairs. Downstairs, the nanny was cleaning. "Auntie," she called out softly. The nanny's attention was attracted. She looked up and saw that it was her. She asked curiously, "Young miss, is there anything?" Chapter 41:28. How could this be? The nanny immediately put down her work and hurried upstairs. When she saw Hua Jin lying on the sofa, looking like he had fallen asleep, she couldn't help but sigh. "You must be exhausted. How did you fall asleep on the sofa?" The nanny nagged as she walked forward and gently pushed Hua Jin's shoulder. "Young master, young master?" Hua Jin didn't move at all. The nanny was suspicious and shook him a little harder. Hua Jin woke up abruptly. He opened his eyes and felt a terrible headache. His brain felt empty, and he didn't realize where he was. Natalia saw the confusion in his eyes and realized that her hypnosis had worked. She sighed in relief. Hypnosis was all about coordination. If a person was extremely resistant and repulsed before being hypnotized, especially when he was so alert just now, as if he had guessed what she was going to do, the hypnosis could easily fail. She didn't expect it to work. She took a deep breath and immediately smiled. She pretended to be careful and said, "Uncle, are you tired? How did you fall asleep on the sofa?" Hua Jin's gaze was a little confused. He also didn't know why he was lying on the sofa for no reason. His memory was still stuck at the time when Gong Jie left. How did he end up lying here in the blink of an eye? What had happened in between that he didn't realize at all? Hua Jin was a little confused. "Why am I here? You said you were tired and wanted to sit for a while. You didn't expect to fall asleep on the sofa." Natalia paused and explained, "I didn't want to wake you up, but the weather is getting colder. I was worried that you would catch a cold, so I wanted to wake you up and go back to your room to sleep." Hua Jin was still a little confused when he heard this. Then why did he lose a part of his memory for no reason? What had happened between them? How could he have forgotten all about it? "Maybe you're sleepy and tired," Natalia said. "If you're tired, go back to your room and sleep. It's getting late. Go to bed early." As she spoke, she yawned. "I feel sleepy too. I'm going back to my room to rest. Good night." Hua Jin nodded, but he was still in a daze. His head felt empty. He didn't like this feeling. It was as if he had lost his memory. At that moment, he seemed to understand why Yu had once told him that the memories of the two personalities were always blank and how painful it was. It was as if he had lost his memory. Hua Jin gently hit his head and racked his brain for a while, but he couldn't remember what had happened. So, he stood up and grabbed his coat. The nanny saw that something was wrong with his expression and asked worriedly, "What's wrong?" "I don't feel well." Hua Jin said weakly, "I'm tired. I want to rest early." "But then, young master, rest early. Good night." And Hua Jin walked towards the bedroom. The nanny looked at his back view hesitantly. Just now, she stood at the top of the stairs and vaguely heard the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. She wanted to go up and take a look, but she didn't. She didn't know what had happened, but she felt that. Chapter 41:29. Gong Fan had become very strange recently. He couldn't put his finger on it, but one day, the time he slept became longer and longer, and the time he was awake became less and less. It was as if he was on the verge of disappearing. Yu found it very strange. He didn't deliberately suppress him. However, the time Gong Fan woke up became more and more unpredictable. Yu didn't know what happened to make him like this. Gong Fan hasn't been online for a long time. Lying on his stomach on the bed, little Ichen rested his head on his hands and complained to Yu. "So much so that no one plays games with me." Xiao Ichen had been obsessed with a game recently. It was an FPS shooting game. Yu couldn't remember the name of the game, but the background of the game seemed to be on a deserted island. There were a total of 100 players who jumped onto the island in the form of parachutes. There were all kinds of vehicles, guns, and explosives on the island. The player who survived to the end would obtain supreme glory. Gong Jie was the first to play this game. Later, Xiao Ichen followed suit and started to play with Gong Jie. In the end, Gong Jie thought that he was a scammer. Xiao Ichen's marksmanship was top-notch in real life, but in the game, he was a scammer. This game wasn't a game that could be played well simply by having good marksmanship. The most important thing was to have dynamic vision, insight, and even hearing. The opponent could be hiding in the corner, on the roof, or behind the sofa. The one who discovered the enemy first had a chance of winning. Gong Jie didn't want to play with Xiao Ichen, so he made an excuse and said that he only wanted to play with 4 people. If Xiao Ichen could gather 4 people, he would play with Xiao Ichen. Xiao Ichen coaxed and pestered Muyajia to play with Gong Fan. Gong Fan didn't play much. Gong Jie couldn't go online to play all the time because of work. Thus, when Gong Fan was around, Xiao Ichen would play with him. When Gong Fan wasn't around, he would pester Muyajia to play with him. Gong Fan was surprisingly good at this game. Most importantly, he was patient and had a steady state of mind. In a calm state, he could hunt his opponents gracefully and calmly. Xiao Ichen loved playing with him. Gong Fan's insight was extremely shocking. Once he discovered an enemy, he would also report the exact location to Xiao Ichen. Therefore, as long as Gong Jie was around, Xiao Ichen would abandon Muyajia and Gong Jie without hesitation and hug his younger brother's thigh tightly. However, Gong Fan had not been online for a while, so Xiao Ichen muttered. Not being able to play the game was a small matter, but Xiao Ichen was vaguely worried that something had happened to Gong Fan. Yu saw Xiao Ichen lying on the bed in boredom. He was staring at the screen of his phone with his mouth behind his back. On the screen was a picture of the battle results. He had just lost the game and was feeling depressed. His mentality was a little explosive. Yu was speechless. "I see that you've been addicted to playing games recently. Mommy said that if you continue to be so addicted, she'll consider cutting off your internet connection." "It's impossible to cut off my internet connection unless he cuts off the internet connection for the whole family. It's impossible to cut off the internet connection, but it's not impossible to confiscate your phone." Xiao Ichen glanced at him and opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything. Yu saw that he obviously had something to ask and snorted. "You seem to have something to say." Chapter 41:30. He lay on his stomach on the bed and propped his head up with his hands. "I haven't seen Gong Fan for a long time. Is he sick? If he's sick, I'll be sick too." Then, Xiao Ichen couldn't think of any other reason. He sighed and said, "I'm just a little worried." "Are you really worried? Or are you bored because there's no one to play games with?" Xiao Ichen looked aggrieved when he heard this. Am I that kind of person? I'm really worried, okay? You're my younger brother, and he's also my biological younger brother. Isn't it natural for an older brother to be worried about his younger brother? I thought you didn't want to see him since you were so afraid of him. Xiao Yichen smiled guiltily. Actually, it's not that bad. At first, I wasn't used to his personality. I felt that he was too cold. However, after interacting with him for a while, I felt that he was just cold on the outside. To be precise, he was just using his coldness to protect himself from getting hurt. I feel that he must be someone who lacks a sense of security. That's why he doesn't want anyone to walk into his heart so easily. Yu rubbed his head and said, "All right, don't let your imagination run wild. Play your game." Xiao Yichen rested his head on his chest and looked at him innocently with his big, watery eyes. "Are you playing?" Yu glanced at him coldly. "To put it bluntly, you want me to play games with you." Xiao Yichen blinked his eyes in a flattering manner. "Let's play together. This game is really fun. Even Gong Fan is a little addicted to it. Daddy has been playing it whenever he's free." Game. Chicken. Chicken? Yu thought that he had heard wrongly. "What do you want to eat?" "Chicken." Yu thought for a moment. He couldn't help but imagine a scene in his mind. On a patch of green grass, a large minion was eating a chicken. It sounded like a childish game. It sounds so boring. Actually, chicken dinner is just a nickname. The real name of this game is PlayerUnknown's Battleground. PUBG. It's just fun. I have an account. I'll lend it to you. Yu muttered, "I don't know how to play this game." "If you don't know, I can teach you first. It's very simple and easy to learn. It's just that it's a little difficult to get first place. Anyway, once you start playing, don't think about getting chicken dinner. Just think about how to familiarize yourself with the controls." Without hesitation, Xiao Yichen dragged Yu into his study room and pushed him in front of the computer. Yu and Xiao Yichen each had a different study room. Originally, there were only 2 study rooms. One was for Mu Yaja's personal use and the other was for Yu and Xiao Yichen to share. In fact, it was not a problem for the 2 of them to share a study room. Yu used the study room more. Xiao Yichen did not use the study room much other than doing his homework. Later on, Xiao Yichen started playing games. Hence, he asked for a study room of his own. Coincidentally, there was an empty room on the 2nd floor. After some decorations, it became his personal study room. Compared to Yu's study room, Xiao Yichen's study room was renovated later on. Hence, it was full of technological vibes. It was all intelligent systems. Intelligent curtains, intelligent doors and windows, intelligent stereo, intelligent bookshelves. Chapter 41:31. As soon as Xiao Yichen opened the door, he instructed the artificial intelligence, "Close the curtains." After a second of reaction, the curtains slowly closed by themselves. "Turn on the lights." The lights turned on with a pop sound. Then, Yu saw 3 supercomputers. They were called supercomputers because these 3 computers were equipped with gaming equipment such as keyboards, mice, speakers, and earbuds. They were all the best equipment available on the market. It was said that Xiao Yichen had taken this study out of his New Year's money account. It was also said that Xiao Yichen's New Year's money account was at least a 9-figure sum. These pieces of equipment were nothing to him. Yu sat down on the computer chair curiously. This computer chair had a massage function. At the same time, it was built according to ergonomic standards to prevent cervical and lumbar spine problems caused by prolonged gaming. Sitting on it, he felt that his whole body was surrounded. It was indeed very comfortable. Yu frowned. "Where's the display?" "Wait a minute." Xiao Yichen pressed a button. After a while, the display shelf slowly lowered from above his head. There were a total of 3 displays on the shelf. The one in the middle was a curved screen. For the sake of playing a game, little Yichen would use the best configuration no matter what. Xiao Yichen helped him log into the game account. Yu was confused throughout. This is the European server. It's a European server. However, there are still many players in China. Xiao Yichen explained the rules of the game to him. "Do you know about mercenaries?" "Yes. There are 100 players participating in each game. The players' characters are mercenaries. They parachute to every corner of the island and look for weapons, vehicles, and supplies with their bare hands. They also fight in various terrains. To win, strategy and marksmanship are equally important. In each game, the safe zone will be changed randomly. The weapons and items obtained in each zone will appear randomly. If you can survive until the end, you will win. In other words, the other 99 players are losers, said the boy in a low voice. You could say that. Then why is this game called Chicken Dinner? Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Have you heard of it? Yes, I have. That's a saying from a Las Vegas casino. A long time ago, every the casinos in Vegas had a rice dish that consisted of 3 pieces of chicken, potatoes, and vegetables. The standard reward for winning a bet was, so if you won once, you would have enough money to buy a chicken rice dish. If you get first place in this game, that's what you'll get. In other words, you'll get chicken dinner tonight. That's how the nickname came about. Oh. However, not every player can be so lucky to get chicken dinner. Yu asked, is Gong Fan very good at this game? Super awesome. Xiao Yichen had a look of disbelief on his face. Every time I get a chicken dinner, it's because he brought me to play. I remember that when he played games, his marksmanship was not as good as yours. Chapter 41:32. As Yu listened, he recalled the words that Gong Fan left in his notebook. I don't want to play games with Xiao Yichen anymore. He's always dragging me down. How can he be so stupid? Moreover, this game is so boring. It's a waste of time. Yu wondered what Xiao Yichen would do if he knew what Gong Fan said about him. Don't you think that you're playing very badly? Xiao Yichen blushed. He did not look at him directly. Instead, he walked to the side awkwardly and said softly, I think my skills are okay. This game is not easy to begin with. It's already not easy for me to play it like this. If it's a solo match, I can make it to the final circle. Wow, is this something worth bragging about? Yi was curious. What was so charming about this game that even his picky brother had fallen for it? He heard that his uncle and daddy had fallen for the game as well. He logged into the game and was matched with an opponent. The next second, the screen was loaded into the spawn area. Yu realized that his character was a girl. He was wearing a white shirt and a skirt with a pair of sunglasses. It reminded him of how Lisa would look like when she grew up. The spawn area was noisy. As the microphone was connected to the public channel, it was extremely noisy. Yu found the switch to turn off the microphone. Suddenly, a voice entered his ears. Are you a big sister? Yu was shocked. When he came to his senses, he realized that a man with a rough appearance and a soft voice was standing in front of him. It was as if he could see the man's curious gaze through the screen. Just as Yu was about to turn off the voice chat, Xiao Yichen covered his earpiece and spoke into the microphone with a coquettish voice. Big brother, how old are you? Wow. The man immediately looked at Xiao Yichen's avatar. Yu turned his view as well, only to see that little Yichen had also created a female avatar. He despised him in his heart. You're a guy. Why are all your avatars female? Xiao Yichen covered the microphone and complained, because the men in this game are all unshaven. They're so ugly and rough. Then he spoke into the microphone, Big brother, can you take me to chicken dinner? Yu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Little Yichen had yet to change his voice. Before that, his voice was no different from a girl's. Then, through the microphone's rendering, the male player on the other side quickly believed her. Wow, it's really a girl. His teammate ran over from the side and reminded him, don't be fooled. There are a lot of players pretending to be girls these days. Do they have voice-changing software? Little Yichen immediately said in a coquettish tone, I'm not pretending. Only an idiot would believe it. How could a woman claim to be a girl? Yu thought that no one would believe Xiao Yichen's words. However, he had obviously overestimated the IQ of this nerd in the game. You sound like a girl. You sound like a soft girl. Girl, your voice is so nice. What's your name? Xiao Yichen held back his laughter and smiled. Yue Yao. Yu could not hold it in and almost spat it out. Chapter 41:33. Little Ichen was simply out of his mind. Even his own sister was being cheated by him? Yu Yu was speechless. If Yueyao finds out that you've tricked her like this, she'll definitely draw circles and curse you. You said it yourself. How could a sister bear to draw circles and curse her own brother? The game had begun. On the plane, the two men were still chatting with Xiao Yichen. It was obvious that they believed that Xiao Yichen was really a girl. Along the way, they kept beating around the bush. Miss, how old are you this year? I'm 18. Do you have a boyfriend? Why would an 18-year-old have a boyfriend? I'm so addicted to gaming that I'm not in the mood to date. Yu Yu was expressionless the entire time. All she could do was listen to Xiao Yichen's nonsense. Miss, where do you want to jump to later? The military base. There's a lot of people at the military base. Miss, you have to protect me. Xiao Yichen grinned. Sure. Give me the guns you picked up and I'll protect you. Okay. That's great. Miss, you're going to carry us. The game was a two-player team. The two men were in the same team. However, Yu could tell that the two men were obviously trying to flirt with Xiao Yichen the entire time. She could also tell that they were very confident in their gaming skills. Miss, if you win this round, why don't we add each other as friends? Xiao Yichen smiled. Sure. Oh right. Who's your other teammate? Xiao Yichen glanced at Yu Yu and explained, she's my sister. Sister? Yes, her name is Lisa. What's her English name? It's very Western. Xiao Yichen winked at Yu Yu. Sister, say something. Yu Yu ignored him. The two men coaxed her. Miss Lisa, say something. Yu Yu forced out a few words. I don't feel like talking. Xiao Yichen explained, it's her first time playing. I pestered her to team up with me. Otherwise, it's too boring to play alone. Yu Yu rolled her eyes again. Xiao Yichen was good at bullshitting. Didn't he blush when he said that? Xiao Yichen marked the military base and teach Yu Yu how to parachute jump. When they were near the base, Xiao Yichen said, jump. The four of them jumped. Yu did it. Yu Yichen, S got Yu Yichen he Yu O's he was in the S. Once they landed, they had to search for equipment. By searching for equipment, they were searching for guns. There were a lot of people in the military base. It could be said that it was a sea of people. Many people chose to stay in the military base. The game's effects were very realistic. After Yu Yu landed, she immediately followed Xiao Yichen into a room. When they entered the room and their characters stopped moving, they could hear many footsteps passing by outside the window. Little Yichen's expression tensed up instantly. I think there are footsteps. Someone's here. Someone's here? Xiao Yichen shushed her and listened carefully. He immediately turned the camera to the window and said to Yu Yu, I'll keep watch. You go and search the room for guns. Chapter 4134. It looked like a box with bottles and jars inside. The words, first aid kit, were written on it. However, he did not know what this item was used for. Just as Yu Yu was about to ask, Xiao Yichen asked curiously, did you pick something up? Yes, I picked it up. What is it? First aid kit. Medicine. Little Yichen immediately leaned over to take a look in disbelief. His eyes widened. Are you that lucky? In this game, other than first aid kits, painkillers, energy drinks, and epinephrine from the airdrop, there was also a first aid kit. This item could instantly replenish one's health points. The other items could only be replenished bit by bit. Even a first aid kit could only replenish 70% of one's health points. However, first aid kits were very rare. It could be said that they were very hard to come by. Are you that lucky? Am I that lucky? Maybe it's because of the newbie halo. Xiao Yichen continued, there are still a few rooms and a few floors above. You can search them all. This house is quite big, maybe there are other treasures. Thus, the boy began to search for them in an orderly manner. Every time he picked up an item, Yu Yu would read it out loud. However, the more he read, the more Xiao Yichen wondered if Yu's luck was off the charts. Special Forces helmet, military bulletproof vest, 8x scope, 98K sniper rifle, M16 or something. I think it's an automatic rifle. It uses 56 bullets. The more Xiao Yichen listened, the more his eyes widened. There's also a huge backpack. This is too much. How can I be that lucky? Forget about the level 3 backpack, level 3 helmet, level 3 military vest, and the 98k. However, the 8x scope and the first aid kit were good items that he could not find even if he searched for them. Amazing. Outside the house, there was a fierce exchange of gunfire. If he went out, he would become a live target. Therefore, Xiao Yichen decided to stay in the house. Seeing that no one was coming in, Xiao Yichen went upstairs and asked Yu to give him some guns. Yu was still not very familiar with the operation. Fortunately, there was no one around, so Xiao Yichen taught him bit by bit. Although he was not familiar with the operation, he was very familiar with the computer, so he quickly familiarized himself with the operation. Xiao Yichen had never held such a good starting weapon before. With his 98k in hand, he crouched on the rooftop and aimed outside the window. Fortunately, they were in the safe zone. Through the 8x scope, Xiao Yichen saw people fighting and exchanging fire in another area. He realized that the two most ferocious fighters were the two men who had hit on him on the plane. It wasn't far from him. The gunfire soon stopped. Xiao Yichen saw that the two men were looting the bags, so he asked Yu to follow him and ran towards the two men. When he got closer, he hid behind a bunker and asked, "Little brother, did you pick up a good gun?" "Little sister, you're not dead." "That's great." The two men returned with a full load and threw a pile of good equipment in front of him. "Snatch it, a 4x scope, 8 first aid kits, and a lot of ammo. I'll give it all to you." "Wow. Are you really giving it all to me?" Xiao Yichen pretended to be overjoyed, and his voice became even more coquettish. Yu shuddered when he heard this. How mushy. Chapter 41:35. However, it was obvious that these two young men obviously fell for this trick. "Miss, your voice is so gentle. Miss, come with us. We'll take you to chicken dinner. Let's play together in the next round." Xiao Yichen said sweetly, "Sure." As he spoke, he winked at Yu smugly. The smugness on his face was obvious. Yu twitched his lips and said coldly, "I want a first aid kit too." Wow. Although Yu's voice was cold, it sounded like a young girl's voice. Moreover, he spoke softly. Through the earpiece, it sounded like a lowly's voice. A man walked over and whispered, "Just now. I found a first aid kit. Here, take it." As he spoke, the man threw a first aid kit in front of Yu. Yu picked it up with a clear conscience. Xiao Yichen did not know whether to laugh or cry. The four of them formed a temporary team. They found a car and drove to another city. At first, Yu felt that it was a little boring. However, he gradually realized that there was something fun about this game. The fact that so many people were playing this game proved that it had a certain charm to it. For example, this game did not have the messy marksmanship of other FPS games. It only had attentiveness, eyesight, and hearing. Being observant and alert was the only way for this game to last until the end. According to Xiao Yichen, if Gong Fan played this game, he would have an 8x scope. Yu did not understand what he meant by an 8x scope. Little Yichen said that as long as Gong Fan was staring at the screen, even if it was a figure smaller than a sesame seed on a distant mountain peak, he could see it. Without any background, he could simply use a rifle to blast that person's head off. There were a few times when people suspected that he was cheating and reported him. However, after the official investigation, there were still some people who were unconvinced that there was no cheating involved. Once, he was matched with a professional player who specialized in doing live broadcasts of this game. When he was a streamer, he was shot in the head by Gong Fan. When he watched the replay and saw that Gong Fan did not have a scope, he naturally thought that he had used X-ray vision and auto-aim. As a result, there was a huge commotion. However, in the end, the officials checked and found that Gong Fan did not use a plugin. They also analyzed the aiming trajectory and thought that it was a visual recognition and a holographic sight. The streamer was slapped in the face and had nothing to say. His popularity dropped immediately. After all, slandering other players for cheating was a shameful thing in the gaming world. There were many cheats in this game. However, there weren't many players like Gong Fan who played as if they were dead. Little Yichen was also surprised that Gong Fan knew how to control the gun with some tricks to reduce the recoil of the gun when it was fired. He did not expect that Gong Fan, who had not been in contact with games, would be so good at such games. He also sighed. Why was it that even though they were born in the same mother's womb, his judgment was not as good as Gong Fan's? Gong Jie said that Gong Fan's dynamic vision was very good. There was once when they were playing table tennis. The ball was so fast, but he could actually see the trajectory of the table tennis ball clearly and even make predictions in advance. Gong Jie said that if Gong Fan were to play tennis, he would definitely be very good. Xiao Yichen was envious. Chapter 41-36. As the game progressed to the middle stage, the number of survivors on the map dropped to 29. In other words, other than the 4 of them, there were 25 players left. As Yu was not familiar with the game, he did not need to go out and kill people. It could be said that he was enjoying the fruits of someone else's labor. The other 2 young men and Xiao Yichen went around killing people. The 3 of them had a huge advantage in this 2-player competition. Yu was in charge of searching house by house under their cover. Gradually, the 4 of them became very well equipped. Each of them had at least 10 first aid kits. Even the level 3 backpack was full of bullets. Xiao Yichen asked Yu to keep 60 bullets for himself and give the rest to him. As for his backpack, he only needed to keep the first aid kit. In the final circle, the real battle was between grenades and first aid kits. Only by staying low could they get chicken dinner. However, what surprised Xiao Yichen was that not only was Yu lucky, but he also had the Destiny Circle. As the name suggested, the Destiny Circle was a safe zone and a blue circle that would appear in the game. It was not called a blue circle but an electric field. Standing in the circle would cause one's health to decrease. Only by entering the safe zone would one be able to avoid such damage. The safe zone would slowly shrink. In other words, the players would be forced to damage each other until the final winner was decided. Yu's face was extremely pale. He looked very lucky. Almost every time the safe zone refreshed, it would be under his feet. He had the newbie halo, but this halo was too scary. Xiao Yichen did not believe it. He asked Yu to stand there and not move. Yu hid beside the cabinet and lay there without moving. The safe zone refreshed twice, but it was still under his feet. The blue circle was getting smaller and smaller. There were not many players left in the game. There were only about 10 of them left. Xiao Yichen was determined to stay low. Yu squatted in the corner. Outside the door, the 2 little brothers acted as her escorts, guarding the window and making tut-tut-tut sounds non-stop. In the end, there were only 4 people left. Xiao Yichen looked at Yu, and Yu looked at Xiao Yichen. Clearly, they did not understand what he meant. Only 4 people left. Xiao Yichen whispered, "Should we get rid of those 2 boys so that we can get the chicken dinner?" Yu's lips twitched. "I don't think that's a good idea. After all, they have protected us all the way. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have been able to fight so smoothly. Are you trying to burn the bridge after crossing the river?" Xiao Yichen felt a little guilty when he heard that. Originally, he was also a little guilty. After all, these 2 little brothers were sincerely good to him. He couldn't bear to stab such kind-hearted little brothers in the back. Not long after, the 2 little brothers also came upstairs. "Miss, there's no one else. It's just the 4 of us. We promised to get the chicken dinner. Why don't we jump into the blue circle and let you guys get the chicken dinner? What do you think?" The little brothers obviously had the spirit of self-sacrifice. They had protected Xiao Yichen and Yu all the way. In the end, they actually wanted to sacrifice themselves so that Xiao Yichen and Yu could get the chicken dinner. Xiao Yichen felt even more guilty. "No need. You guys don't have to jump into the blue circle." Chapter 41-37. However, the 2 young men said in the public chat, "We promised to bring you guys to win chicken dinner. Miss, I think you're pretty good. Why don't we add each other as friends after the game ends and we can win chicken dinner together? What do you think?" Most men would be happy to meet a female player in a game like this. Most of the male players were heroes and wanted to be their bodyguards. This was a mysterious sense of mission. To them, bringing a girl to win chicken dinner was much more fulfilling than winning chicken dinner by themselves. Xiao Yichen looked at Yu and hesitated. Should he tell them the truth? They would be disappointed and aggrieved, right? However, just like what Yu had said, there had to be a winner at the end of the game anyway. At most, he would reveal his identity and see what their decision would be. Hence, Xiao Yichen mustered up his courage and said, "Actually, we're not girls." There was a long silence. It was so silent that Xiao Yichen thought the computer had crashed. The local server of this game had not been released yet. The server was not very stable and would often go crazy. Xiao Yichen thought that the server had gone crazy. However, a speechless voice came from the other side. "You're not girls? Didn't you say that you're girls?" Xiao Yichen then realized that it was not because the server was lagging but because the two young men could not accept reality and were silent. Yu covered his face and felt a little embarrassed. Pretending to be a girl to play games was too cowardly. There was almost no good gaming experience and no sense of mission to survive until the end. He only felt that he had to lie down all the way. Xiao Yichen explained awkwardly, "Actually, we're all boys." "You use voice changers." The boy's voice suddenly became angry. There was a type of software called a voice changer. When the software was turned on, the voice changer could be used to imitate other characters' voices. Some male players cheated and bought voice changers. Then, they pretended to be girls and won chicken dinner. Players called these people lady boys. Xiao Yichen quickly explained, "It's not a voice changer. We're only 11, and we haven't started to change our voices yet, so..." Before he could finish his sentence, he heard a flurry of footsteps. Then, the two male players rushed in front of them with guns in their hands. All he heard was an angry shout, "Liar!" Then, Xiao Yichen felt a burst of electric sparks on the screen. Tut tut tut. Two male players were shooting at them with their AKMs. Soon, an interface popped up on the screen. "Keep up the good work and get the chicken dinner next time." The team was ranked second. Xiao Yichen was stunned and did not react for a long time. The two young men turned hostile. When they heard Xiao Yichen confess that he was a boy, they shot him and Yu to death. This, Xiao Yichen was completely dumbfounded. He had thought of countless endings, but he never thought that it would be such an ending. How could it be like this? Just because he lied to them that he was a girl, they turned their backs on him? They had killed 100 players all the way to the final circle. Shouldn't they have some revolutionary feelings? They were even comrades. Yu looked at Xiao Yichen's embarrassed expression and could not help but laugh out loud. Chapter 41:38. Yu laughed mercilessly, completely ignoring Xiao Yichen's embarrassment. "You're laughing? You're still laughing? You still have the nerve to laugh? We almost got chicken dinner." "What do you mean by, we?" Yu held back her laughter and said seriously, "From the beginning to the end of the game, I don't think we contributed much." "What do you mean we didn't contribute much?" "We cheered them on and even helped them search for first aid kits." "Didn't you give them all 3 first aid kits?" "I felt guilty and knew that I shouldn't have lied to them that I was a girl, so I came clean. They didn't have to be so heartless. They even turned their backs on us and shot us to death." You couldn't hold it in anymore. "If Yueao grows up and finds out that you used her name to cheat others, let's see how she'll deal with you." When Xiao Yichen heard this, he didn't think much of it. "That'll happen when she's older." Suddenly, footsteps could be heard outside the door. "Brother, speak of the devil." Yu left the computer table and walked to the door. He saw Yueao standing outside the door in a little dress. She looked up at Yu with a smile. "It's time to eat. Mommy told me to call you guys." "Yueao, good girl." Yu picked Yueao up and hugged her like a glutinous rice ball. He couldn't bear to let her go. Yueao was already more than 3 years old. Gradually, her facial features became more and more mature. The amazing thing was that Yueao and Mu Yaja didn't look much different from each other. Perhaps it was because their daddy's genes were too strong. Old people always said that boys usually looked more like their mothers, while girls looked more like their fathers. However, Yu and Xiao Yichen, this pair of twins, looked more like Mu Yaja. She had thought that when Yueao grew up, she would be more like Yun Shirshir. When she was young, she looked very similar to Yun Shirshir. However, as he grew bigger and bigger, other than his eyes and skin, the rest of his body started to resemble Mu Yaja. Yueyao's skin was very white, even whiter than Yun Shirshi's. It was not an exaggeration to describe her as milky white. She had the rare snow-white skin of Asians. Her curled eyelashes were also occupied by him. At first glance, she looked like a doll. Yun Shirshir especially loved to dress her up. Dresses, princess outfits, she was so happy to dress her up. Every girl had a dream of being a princess. Even after they grew up, this dream remained. However, some people were lucky enough to keep this dream alive, such as her. She poured all her dreams of being a princess onto Yueyao. From the princess room to the princess dress, Yun Shirshir couldn't wait to pamper Yueyao. However, she was still the most strict with Yueyao. After all, if she wasn't strict, Yueyao could be said to be omnipotent at home. Too many people doted on her. Mu Yazhe, Gong Jie, Hua Jin, Yu, and Xiao Yichen. No one could bear to not dote on her. Especially Mu Yazhe. He was a slave to his daughter. His servile nature was simply unseen. He could never bear to lose his temper at Yueyao. The most memorable day was that day when Mu Yazhe woke up in the morning and prepared to go to work. He stood in front of the mirror and combed his hair. Usually, he didn't allow others to touch a single strand of his hair. Even Yun Shirshir had limited privileges. Chapter 4139. Every morning before he went to the office, he would meticulously fix his hair and style it with mousse. Yueyao suddenly woke up and opened her mouth to ask for daddy. He walked over and picked her up. His hair was not fixed yet, but the little princess already thought that his hair looked good. She grabbed it with her little hands. Mu Yazhe did not allow it and patted her little hands. As a result, her rebellious heart was aroused. The more her daddy did not allow her to touch it, the more she wanted to touch it. Her little hands scratched wildly, messing up his hair. Yun Shirshir walked over and saw Mu Yazhe carrying Yueyao. She looked helpless, but she could not bear to scold him. That day, a certain someone went to work with this messy hair. It was said that Lu Jinyu and Jiang Xin had been secretly laughing at him behind his back. It was unprecedented for their boss to appear in the office with a head of messy hair. However, his hair had already been fixed. Unless it was washed, it really could not be fixed. When asked for the reason, Mu Yazhe was even proud of his little princess's masterpiece, and said that Yueyao had personally done it for him. Lu Jinyu and Jiang Xin were amused when they heard that. They laughed at him for being a clown. Mu Yazhe said half-jokingly, "Who asked me to only have one daughter? If we have another one, it won't be just one." Jiang Xin also joked. Lu Jinyu bumped his shoulder. "Are you stupid? Boss only has one daughter. There won't be any more in the future. What's wrong? Have you forgotten?" Lu Jinyu was speechless. Boss had a sterilization operation. "Ah, I remember now." Jiang Xin only then remembered that after Yueyao was born, Mu Yazhe had a sterilization operation. A son and a daughter. Could be said to be perfect. He had nothing to be regretful about. Yu hugged Yueyao and teased her while saying meaningfully, "Yueyao, in the future, don't play with that brother of yours. He even cheated his biological sister. Let's ignore him." With that, Yu carried Yueyao away. In the room, Xiao Yichen was dumbfounded as he watched Yu leave with Yueyao in her arms. "When did I?" he muttered and chased after her. Yu enjoyed spending time with Yueyao. Yueyao liked to pester him to play games. However, he was only 3 years old after all. The games he played were naturally the most childish of all. Yu had long passed the age of playfulness. He matured much earlier than other children, so he was not interested in most of the games that Yueyao liked to play. But as long as it was something Yueyao liked to play, he was willing to be patient and play with him wholeheartedly. Yueyao likes to play with dolls. For this reason, Mu Yazhe specially decorated a room for dolls. The room was very small, but all the wardrobes and furnishings were custom-made according to Yueyao's height. The wardrobes were filled with dolls' clothes and toys for playing house. Yueyao likes to dress the dolls. Every time she pulled Yu into the room, she liked to change the clothes for each of the dolls. At this time, Yu would style the doll's hair according to the clothes that Yueyao changed. The siblings would also study how to braid the hair. Yu thought to himself, "Let's just treat it as practice for the dolls." When Yueyao grew up, the hair braiding technique that he had practiced would come in handy. Hence, sometimes, Yu played even more seriously than Yueyao. Chapter 4140. If it were Gong Fan, he wouldn't be that interested in dolls. However, if Yueyao pestered him to play with her, he would be very willing. For some reason, if Yueyao pestered and pestered them, no matter which family member it was, they would feel a great sense of accomplishment. Making Yueyao like them was a great source of pride. He remembered that once, Yueyao pestered Gong Jie and asked him to hug her. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that Gong Jie bragged about it for half a year. Yueyao likes it and wants me to hug her. My niece is especially clingy to me. It seemed that this gave him a great sense of accomplishment. Because of this, Mu Yaja muttered in his heart. That day, it was just that he wasn't around. If he had been around, Gong Jie wouldn't have had the chance to appear. However, Gong Jie felt indignant. He felt that as an uncle, his charm was not inferior to Mu Yaja's at all. One was a father, the other was an uncle. They were at loggerheads. Gong Fan liked Yueyao very much. Perhaps this kind of affection was second only to the kind of affection he had for Yun Shirshir. When he was with Yueyao, even if the little girl was noisy, his heart would feel very peaceful and beautiful. The most beautiful thing in the world was when she was noisy and he was laughing. When Xiao Yichen came to the living room, he saw Yueyao sitting in Yu's arms, holding a pizza and eating it with relish. This pizza was made by Yun Shirshir. Recently, she wasn't very busy, so she started to learn how to bake. Not to mention, she really didn't have any talent at all. Thus, after asking many friends for help, she finally managed to buy a few baking recipes. She also spent a lot of money to buy a super expensive smart oven. It was the kind of oven that even idiots wouldn't burn. In the recipe books, no matter what ingredient it would be labeled with the amount, the number of grams, and so on. Yun Shirshir strictly followed the recipe books and learned to cook step by step. She even used test tubes to control the amount of sugar. With the help of other tools, she finally made a few finished products. This plate of pizza was her successful product. Although it wasn't as delicious as Yu's, it was comparable to the pizza in the restaurant. Yueyao was a picky eater, just like Mu Yaja, but she could not bear to part with this pizza. Yun Shirshir felt a great sense of accomplishment. Where's Daddy? Little Yichen sat down in his seat and looked around. Why isn't Daddy back yet? He has to work overtime today for a meeting, so let's eat first and not wait for him. And he's not coming to eat? Probably has a dinner appointment. Mu Yaja rarely had dinner parties unless it was an important one that he could not refuse. Only then would he not return home for dinner. It must be said that Yun Shirshir's marriage to Mu Yaja was truly a marriage of love. In the entertainment industry, there were many people who were jealous of her. Most female celebrities who married into rich families looked glamorous on the surface, but in reality, they had to swallow their own bitterness. Everyone was waiting. When Yun Shirshir's scandal was exposed, the reporters from the gossip magazines were also eager to take pictures of Yun Shirshir's unfortunate marriage. Almost every time there was any news, these reporters would be on the move. They remembered one time when a reporter took a picture of Mu Yaja hugging a woman as he went in and out of a shopping mall. Hence, they spread the news that Mu Yaja was having an affair and that Yun Shirshir had a love rival. In the end, a fan enlarged the picture and found that the woman in the picture was Yun Shirshir herself. The loving scene between the husband and wife made many people envious. Chapter 4141. This piece of news also became the biggest joke at that time. Some people laughed at how the paparazzi had resorted to all sorts of underhanded means to smear Yun Shirshir and Mu Yaja's marriage in order to hype up the news. Some people envied Yun Shirshir for marrying for love. There were so many female celebrities in the entertainment industry, but Yun Shirshir was not the only one who had successfully married into a wealthy family. However, there were not many lucky people like Yun Shirshir. In fact, there were none at all. Most female celebrities, especially those in the entertainment industry, dreamed of marrying into a wealthy family. However, all the rich young masters knew in their hearts that celebrities who came from the entertainment industry would not be able to survive in the industry if they did not have some tricks up their sleeves. Hence, they knew very well that celebrities weren't that great and weren't that great. Therefore, most female celebrities who married into wealthy families did not lead happy lives. Even if their husbands were extremely wealthy, it was already extremely difficult for them to maintain their status after marrying into a wealthy family. There was no need to think about how many colorful banners their husbands had outside. Some men would even brazenly bring other women into their homes and have several women serve one husband. As wives, they could only swallow their bitterness, because the family's finances were controlled by the men. After marriage, many female celebrities retired or were in a semi-retired state. The most pitiful thing was to marry a rich second-generation heir and live a good life. In the end, after 3 years of marriage, they found out that their husband was a fake rich man who was on the verge of bankruptcy. They were ridiculed for nothing. This female celebrity wanted a divorce so that she could make a comeback and start acting again after the divorce. However, her management company warned her that when she announced her retirement, she had said that she had married for love. If news of this divorce got out, the public would laugh at her for marrying into a wealthy family for money. Now that her husband was bankrupt, she wanted a divorce. That was too worldly. Her image was not flattering. Therefore, the public relations company created an image for her. In order to repay her husband's debts, she made a comeback to support her family. In short, the entertainment industry was full of different kinds of people, but most of them did not lead a good life. Therefore, her life was not satisfactory. So many people hoped that Xianxia would not lead a good life. It was as if their mentality could only be balanced if she did not lead a good life. Otherwise, so many people who married into wealthy families were unlucky. Why should she be happy? There were even female celebrities who hired private detectives to secretly spy on Xianxia after she married Wuxia. However, the truth was that they saw it clearly. After marriage, Wuxia's business. The Xingyu Financial Group had replaced the Mu family's position in the capital and became the #1 wealthy family. However, after marriage, he cared a lot about the family. If it was not too important, he would usually leave it to Lu Jinyu and Jiang Shun to follow up. After having a daughter, this high-spirited man seemed to be even more gentle. In the past, whenever he appeared in front of the public, Wuxia would be unsmiling and aloof no matter what happened. Of yun of yun of yun of yun of yun of mu 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 of yun of yun of yun. He was also willing to appear on camera. Occasionally, the media would muster up the courage to ask about the little princess, and he was willing to share some of his happiness after marriage. Chapter 41-42. Especially when it came to the time when he was a stay-at-home dad, he did everything by himself, from making milk powder to changing diapers. He worked hard to serve this little princess. The reporters did not believe it. What a joke. A man with a net worth of hundreds of millions actually did not hire a nanny and changed diapers himself. Didn't he find it dirty? Wuxia retorted matter-of-factly, "She's my own daughter. What's there to dislike?" There was a hint of displeasure in his tone. It was as if that question was blasphemy to his daughter. After getting married, even though Wuxia was a newlywed, he was slowly becoming more and more like a veteran. During the day, he hinted that he would go to work and leave work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. During holidays, he would take his wife and children on holiday and even attend parent-teacher meetings personally. The entire entertainment industry was dumbfounded. What kind of person was Wuxia? After getting married, if it had been 1 or 2 years, it would have been fine. But after getting married for so long, there were no scandals at all. The only scandals were with his own wife. Wasn't that infuriating? Everyone was waiting to see Xianxia's drama, but in the end, they were slapped in the face. It was infuriating. What was the saying? Comparisons were odious. Why was it that other people's husbands, who were also rich young masters, were so happy and treated each other with respect, while they lived in such an abyss of suffering? It was unfair. Because of this, someone specially hired a water army to smear Xianxia's image. In the end, not long after, Wuxia did public relations and banned that female celebrity. He banned her just like that. He did not say many harsh words, but he did it cleanly, killing the chicken to warn the monkey. With this, no one dared to be rash. It's rare that daddy doesn't come home for dinner. Xiao Yichen held a drumstick and asked curiously, "What's the matter?" I don't know. You know, I don't know much about your daddy's work. Yun Shirshir smiled and asked him, how is it? Is today's drumstick better than the one you made last time? Xiao Yichen said, and you're not allowed to compare with Yu. Yun Shirshir quickly interrupted him. Yu held back her laughter. Xiao Yichen thought about it carefully and subconsciously smacked his lips. Oh. Yun Shirshir cleared her throat and said, you're not allowed to smack your lips while eating. Xiao Yichen smiled, revealing his pearly white teeth. Because mommy cooks well. Is it better than last time? Yes. That's good. Yun Shirshir had reached perfection. Anyway, it was fine as long as Xiao Yichen liked it. Yu said, mommy's cooking skills are improving. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yichen lowered her voice and whispered into his ear, you don't know how expensive mommy's cooking books are. Last time, she even secretly wanted to sign up for a cooking class. If even that doesn't taste good then, Yun Shirshir's ears were sharp and she heard it. What did you say? I said, Xiao Yichen immediately said, I just said that Yu's cooking skills are so good. He must have inherited mommy's talent. It's just that mommy didn't show it in the past. Is that so? Yun Shirshir looked at Yu suspiciously. Xiao Yichen also looked at Yu. Yu glanced at him and raised her eyebrows. Xiao Yichen looked as innocent as a little deer. Xiao Yichen just said that if mommy cooks for him every day, he will be so happy that he won't know what to do. Yun Shirshir was relieved to hear Yu say this. Chapter 41-43. Luckily, his mommy was a sweet and naive girl. She could be coaxed easily. Otherwise, he would have lost his ears. Xiao Yichen was secretly delighted and settled down. Yueyao reached for the fries, obviously wanting to eat them. Yu immediately took a free for her. When Xiao Yichen saw this, he immediately took a free and presented it to her as if it was a treasure. The two fries were placed in front of her. One was from Yu's hand, and the other was from Xiao Yichen's hand. Without any hesitation, Yueyao grabbed Yu's finger and snatched the fries from his hand, eating them with relish. Luckily, Xiao Yichen wasn't a puppy. If his ears were long enough, they would have drooped by now. Are the fries that Big Brother gave you not nice? Xiao Yichen wagged his tail like a puppy. He looked at Yueyao pitifully and said pitifully, why don't you want my fries? Yueyao said in her baby voice, your hands aren't as good-looking as little brother's. Was this a reason? Xiao Yichen looked at his hands and then looked at Yu's hands. Although they weren't exactly the same, there wasn't much difference. Which part isn't good-looking? Xiao Yichen pouted unhappily, but he was deliberately teasing Yueyao. Yueyao immediately reached over with her oily hands and turned Xiao Yichen's hands around. She pointed at the rough calluses on his palms and said, look, your hands aren't as good-looking as little brother's. Yu frowned slightly when she saw this. The only big difference between Xiao Yichen's hands and his was probably their palms. His palms were clean, but Xiao Yichen's palms had been sent to the special training camp by Mu Yaja when he was young. Because of the recoil, it was inevitable that Xiao Yichen's palms would have some calluses. Xiao Yichen looked at them and suddenly laughed. He said to Yueyao, but I can protect you. If anyone dares to bully my little sister in the future, I can take them down with one hand. Yueyao was teased and revealed her cute little front teeth. At first glance, she looked like a naughty little bunny. Xiao Yichen couldn't help but look at her affectionately. He had looked at Yueyao like this many times, and he couldn't help but feel the urge to give her the best things in the world. However, no matter how he thought about it, wasn't this cute little sister of his the best? Little Yichen asked again, do you want these fries, then? I want that. Little Yueyao pointed at the ketchup. Xiao Yichen immediately squeezed some ketchup and dipped it into the fries. Yueyao panicked when she saw this. She knew that the ketchup was delicious, but until now she still couldn't pronounce the words ketchup skillfully. Xiao Yichen taught her, this is ketchup. Ketchup? Yes, that's right. Xiao Yichen brought the fries to her mouth. Yueyao immediately opened her mouth wide, afraid that the sauce would get on her lips. She was a clean freak and loved cleanliness. In the end, no matter how much she opened her mouth was too small and the sauce still got on the corner of her lips. Aya! Yueyao scrunched up her little face. It's dirty. Xiao Yichen immediately picked up a tissue and coaxed her. Big brother will wipe it clean for you. Don't move. Little Yueyao obediently stopped moving. She pouted and let him wipe it. Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she saw this. Don't wipe it. It'll get on your lips later. Can't we wipe it together? Chapter 41-44. However, Yueyao refused to comply and said seriously, no. If I don't wipe it clean now, it will get on my clothes. It's so uncomfortable, huh? Yun Shirshir laughed. Now that Yueyao was all grown up, she had her own way of speaking and slowly had her own ideas. It was quite fun. Yun Shirshir smiled as she watched the scene. Suddenly, she felt a little worried. Sometimes, the happier one was, the more afraid one would be. This kind of happiness was too short. She knew very well that no matter who it was, life would not be smooth sailing. The happier one was, the more uneasy one would feel. Hence, the more uneasy one was, the more one cherished it. After dinner, Yu and Xiao Yichen took Yueyao for a walk. In the past, Yun Shirshir was still worried. However, after thinking about it, she felt that with Xiao Yichen around, he would definitely be able to protect Yueyao and Yu. Hence, gradually, Yun Shirshir felt more at ease. Xiao Yichen and Yu took Yueyao for a walk. Yun Shirshir was about to wash the dishes when her cell phone suddenly rang. She walked over and picked up her cell phone. She thought that it was Mu Yaja calling, but when she looked at the screen, she saw that it was an unknown number. She thought that it was a prank call and wanted to reject it. However, when she saw that it was an international number, she picked it up curiously. Is this Shirshir? I'm Alice. Alice's serious voice came from the other end of the line. Yun Shirshir heard this and nodded. Yes, it's like this. Usually, Hua Jin would call me at this time every day. However, he didn't call today. I called him, but no one picked up for a long time. What's going on? Yun Shirshir's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. Alice agreed to hand Natalia over to Hua Jin on the condition that Hua Jin cooperated with Alice to keep an eye on Natalia. It wasn't that they were monitoring the prisoners. Instead, it was Natalia's second personality. Until now, no one understood it. Therefore, Hua Jin had to cooperate with Alice. Every night, he would report Natalia's situation to Alice. However, today was the only day that they did not call. Alice was a little worried. I didn't want to trouble you, but Gong Jie is not here. If it's convenient for you, can you go and see what's going on? Yun Shirshir immediately agreed. Okay, I'll go right away. Okay, be careful on the road. Yun Shirshir hung up the phone and stood up. She instructed the housekeeper to inform Xiao Yichen and Yu when they returned with Yueyao that she had something to do. She grabbed her coat and left the house in a hurry. It was not far from Hua Jin's villa. Yun Shirshir arrived 20 minutes later. She parked her car and walked to the door to press the doorbell. The villa was equipped with a butler and housekeeper. The butler opened the door. He recognized Yun Shirshir and greeted her respectfully. Hello. I know. Is Hua Jin at home? Young master is at home. The butler was a little puzzled. May I know what's the matter? I want to see him. Yun Shirshir walked past him hurriedly and was about to enter the villa. The butler stopped her. Young master is still resting. Resting? Yun Shirshir was puzzled. It's not even nighttime yet. Why is he asleep so early? It's not that he's asleep. He hasn't woken up since last night. Yun Shirshir widened her eyes. What? He's still not awake. He slept for a day and a night? Chapter 41-45. What's going on? Yun Shirshir's expression turned serious. Is he sick? The butler reported truthfully, I'm also worried if he's sick. But I've also taken a thermometer. His temperature is normal and there aren't any adverse reactions. He's just become especially sleepy. Sleepy? Yun Shirshir muttered this word silently. She didn't know why her eyelids suddenly twitched. Recently, Gong Fan had become especially sleepy. He had never been like this in the past. Ever since that day, after his afternoon nap, Gong Fan had never appeared again. Dual personality was a very complicated illness. If she wanted to find out about this personality, She wouldn't know how to meet him unless she went through a psychiatrist or a psychiatrist. What was going on? Gong Fan was the same. Hua Jin was the same. What exactly happened to the two of them? Yun Shishir couldn't figure it out. Anyway, I want to see him. I'll bring you there. Yun Shishir was about to step in when a strange voice came from behind her. Shishir? This familiar voice made Yun Shishir turn around immediately. She looked over and saw Qin Zhou and Liang Yin standing behind her. They looked equally confused. Why you here? The two of them said almost at the same time. Yun Shishir smiled, but she couldn't bring herself to smile. I'm here to see Hua Jin. What a coincidence. Qin Zhou curled his lips and walked over. I called Hua Jin. I heard that he's not feeling well, so I came to see what's going on. He told you that he's not feeling well? Qin Zhou nodded. I called him to talk about the termination of the contract. He said a few words vaguely and hung up. I was a little worried, so I decided to visit him personally. Yun Shishir noticed Liang Yin at the side and smiled politely at her. Liang Yin, on the other hand, was at a loss of what to do. Although it wasn't the first time they met, standing in front of Yun Shishir, who was so gentle and beautiful, she couldn't help but feel ashamed of her inferiority. You don't have to be so reserved with her. Shishir was a nice person. She didn't put on airs. Just treat her as an ordinary person. Qin Zhou said. When Liang Yin heard this, she felt even more uneasy. Yun Shishir smiled. It's nothing. Since she's Qin Zhou's friend, she's also my friend. However, now is not the time to chat. Let's go and see Hua Jin first. Liang Yin was also a little worried about Hua Jin, so the three of them walked through the door. There was no one in the living room, and the housekeeper was cleaning. When she saw them, she was shocked. The butler stepped forward and asked, Is young master still resting? That's right. The nanny came back to her senses and immediately said, He's still in the room. He hasn't woken up yet. Let's go up and take a look. Yun Shishir and Qin Zhou exchanged glances and instructed Liang Yin to wait downstairs. The two of them hurried upstairs. When they reached the bedroom door, Qin Zhou knocked on the door and called out a few times. When there was no response, he opened the door and walked in. The moment he opened the door, he happened to see Hua Jin getting out of bed and walking over. When the latter saw them, he was stunned for a moment. You guys. Why you guys here? Seeing that Hua Jin was safe and sound, Yun Shishir heaved a sigh of relief. Her knitted brows finally relaxed a little. It's good that you're okay. She had been frightened. She had thought that no one cared about him because he was sick. Chapter 41-46. Seeing that Yun Shishir and Qin Zhou's expressions had changed from anxiety to relief, Hua Jin was even more perplexed. Look at you guys making a fuss over nothing. I thought I was terminally ill. Who knows? The butler said that you've been sleeping since last night and haven't woken up yet. Alice also said that no one answered her calls. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been so nervous. Qin Zhou frowned. Didn't you say that you weren't feeling well? Hua Jin's heart warmed when he heard that. It turned out that these two fellows had rushed over in a hurry just for this matter. I'm fine, don't worry. It's just that I really don't feel well. I don't know why, but I feel like I can't wake up. He held his heavy forehead and sat down on the edge of the bed unsteadily. Qin Zhou walked over and realized that his face was inexplicably pale and bloodless. What's the matter? You don't look well. Yun Shishir noticed it too, and her heart clenched tightly. Hua Jin shook his head. Probably because I was too tired recently and didn't get enough rest. He comforted them, but in fact, he didn't know why he had become so lethargic and his mental state was so bad. Where's Natalia? Hua Jin suddenly thought of her. Yun Shishir was curious when he mentioned Natalia, but she said, she should be well taken care of by the nanny. Don't worry. When we first came in, they were all very casual. She must have been well taken care of. You, on the other hand, do you want to go to the hospital for a checkup? Hospital? Hua Jin looked terrified. I don't want to go to the hospital. Why? There are so many people in the hospital. If I show up, who knows what news will come out. After he said that, Yun Shirshir and Qin Zhou suddenly looked at each other and burst out laughing. Hua Jin was so afraid of going to the hospital, not because he was afraid of doctors or injections. Something very interesting had happened previously. Hua Jin had gone to the hospital for a checkup because of his severe cold. As a result, he attracted the attention of his fans. While he was waiting for the test results, the hospital was overcrowded. He wore a mask and sat at the entrance of the anorectal department. Because he had a severe cold, his head was heavy and his feet were light. He didn't notice the fans who were secretly taking pictures of him. He was even smug that his disguise was so successful that he wasn't recognized. As a result, the photo of him wearing a mask and sitting at the entrance of the anorectal department was secretly taken by fans and posted online. Many people noticed that he was sitting at the entrance of the department and could not help but imagine. Is Hua Jin a bottom? Could the rumors be true? Does Hua gay? No way. Hua Jin Appa. He is the bottom one. Hua Jin isn't surprised, but what's surprising is that the rumors are actually true. He actually go to the hospital. Will he be alright? It was only then that Hua Jin realized what had happened. When he saw these comments and rumors online after he recovered, he almost vomited blood. These fans' ability to talk from just looking at pictures was too scary. He had just had a severe cold. Why did the rumors become so exaggerated? Chapter 41-47. As a result, Hua Jin was traumatized by the hospital. He had to stay away from it. Don't worry. It's not a big problem. Although Hua Jin didn't know why he was so sleepy, he was sure that it had nothing to do with his health. Yun Shirshir was also helpless. However, seeing how insistent Hua Jin was, she couldn't do anything about it. You still remember that? Qin Zhou snorted and threw a stack of newspapers in front of him. Why don't you explain why you want to terminate your contract with Huan Yu and this news? His tone was a little unfriendly. He seemed a little angry. Hua Jin had left without saying goodbye. He had even rushed to finish filming his movie. He had made an inexplicable phone call and told Qin Zhou that he had decided to semi-retire and would not accept any jobs for the time being. He was also willing to bear all the responsibility for breaching the contract. Qin Zhou was a little surprised. When he asked for the reason, Hua Jin didn't say much. He only expressed his guilt towards him. It wasn't easy for Qin Zhou to nurture him for so many years. Now that Hua Jin had announced his semi-retirement, Qin Zhou was even doubting himself. What kind of system was he in? Why did the artists under him suddenly quit for no reason? Except for Gu Xingzi. Whether it was Yun Shirshir or Hua Jin, one had retired for the sake of her family and the other had retired for unknown reasons. Just when he was confused, he saw a piece of news on the media. The paparazzi had taken a picture of Hua Jin carrying a girl to the mall. He was holding Natalia's hand and taking her to the children's section to buy toys. Coincidentally, this reporter was also shopping in the mall and casually recorded it with his phone. Without any effort, it created a sensational piece of news in the entertainment industry. Hua Jin's illegitimate daughter exposed? Popular young actor Hua Jin appears in a bustling mall holding a mixed-race girl's hand. Their relationship is confusing. In addition, the news that Hua Jin was going to semi-retire from the entertainment industry spread like wildfire. As a result, everyone suspected that Hua Jin had an illegitimate daughter and was being forced to get married. So, he decided to get married, retire from the entertainment industry, and give up on his acting career. Hua Jin stared dumbfoundedly at the extravagant reports in the newspaper. His sluggish expression was almost distorted. What nonsense is this? That's what I want to ask you. Qin Zhou said unhappily, why didn't you tell me that you had an illegitimate daughter? Even if there's something that's hard to say, I won't blame you if you tell me. You said you wanted to retire without saying a word. Do you respect me? Hua Jin was speechless. He said with a headache, actually, I don't know how to sort out this relationship, but the child really isn't mine. Not yours? Qin Zhou expressed his doubts. Really? Don't you know me? Hua Jin felt wronged and said, am I the kind of person who messes around? That's not it. Qin Zhou changed the topic and said, you're a delicate little flower. You can only be trampled on, but you don't have the ability to trample on others. Hua Jin hugged the blanket and felt extremely wronged. That's too much. I'm very obedient, I won't do those kinds of things. You're not allowed to criticize me like that. All right. Qin Zhou regained his serious expression. May I know the background of this child? Chapter 41-48. Your responsibility? Qin Zhou was even more surprised now. What was all this about? Yun Xianxia explained, this is a girl that my brother asked Hua Jin to take care of. She has a split personality and needs to be adopted and taken care of. She also needs treatment. Initially, I wanted to adopt her, but you know my family situation. Yueyao needs someone to take care of her. Yu, Xiao Yichen and now Lisa. I can't do anything else. So, I had no choice but to ask Hua Jin to take care of her. Qin Zhou's astonished gaze landed on Hua Jin. Hua Jin looked like a wronged kitten. Actually, Yun Xianxia felt very guilty about this. Although Gong Jie had given Hua Jin quite a lot of compensation, asking Hua Jin to take care of a child was like kidnapping his life. It didn't matter whether he was willing or not. After all, Hua Jin had no experience and would be a burden to him. However, Hua Jin accepted it silently. Yun Xianxia was quite surprised that he was willing to take care of Natalia and even retire from the entertainment industry. Yun Xianxia briefly explained the situation to Qin Zhou. After listening to her explanation, Qin Zhou understood the situation. I'm here today to deal with the termination of the contract. As he spoke, Qin Zhou threw a letter to him. Hua Jin tore it open and read through the document with a look of astonishment on his face. What's wrong? Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows. Do you have any objections to the termination of the contract? Why is the penalty blank? Hua Jin blinked. Do you want me to fill it in? Qin Zhou glanced at him coldly. If you follow the rules, you'll have to pay the company at least 8 figures. 8 figures? Hua Jin sucked in a breath of cold air. Although Gong Jie had promised him that he would help him pay the penalty, he was still shocked when he heard the amount. However, Qin Zhou actually didn't want him to pay. Surprise! What a good person! Hua Jin was so touched that he covered his mouth and tears streamed down his face. Boss Qin, you're really… Shut up. Qin Zhou was still a little annoyed. He was still a little depressed. He had originally planned to make Hua Jin the top star, but in the end, he was a disappointment. He wanted to retire, and the reason was that he had to take care of his child. What a weird reason. However, for the sake of his boss, Qin Zhou had to give her face. Forget it. Qin Zhou waved his hand. If you're still willing to act in the future, I'll help you find resources. If you don't want to, then just stay at home and be a stay-at-home dad. Thank you, Qin Da. Hua Jin almost hugged the man's trousers and burst into tears. I'm still a little reluctant to terminate the contract. Don't. Qin Zhou pushed him away in disgust. Hurry up and terminate the contract. I've had it with you. Hua Jin, what happened to the revolutionary camaraderie? Qin Zhou threw the pen to him. Hua Jin took the pen and signed the termination agreement obediently. However, he didn't know why, but after he signed his name, he felt an inexplicable sense of loss. Although he had said earlier that he wanted to quit the entertainment industry because he had had enough of it, when it came to leaving, he actually felt a little reluctant and hesitant. The entertainment industry had taken up almost half of his life. It gave him loneliness, glory, belittlement, and limitless glory. Chapter 41-49. Yun Xianxia looked at Hua Jin's lonely expression when he signed the contract and couldn't help but feel her heart ache. She understood Hua Jin's complicated feelings about the entertainment industry. It wasn't home, but it was home. For a moment, he actually felt reluctant to leave. Yun Xianxia immediately comforted him. Don't feel sad. If you feel reluctant, you can take on a good script if you see one. Hua Jin smiled. It's okay, I'm just being a little pretentious. After all, I've been in the entertainment industry since I was a teenager, so… He smiled. It's okay. After a pause, he suddenly thought of something. He frowned and thought of Natalia. Ah, Natalia. Yun Xianxia was also puzzled when she heard him mention Natalia. Where is she? I don't think I saw her. She should be in her room. Hua Jin was a little puzzled. He didn't know when it happened. He felt like he had slept for a long time. When he woke up, his head was a little swollen, but he couldn't remember what had happened. He vaguely remembered that after Yun Shishir, Yu, and Xiao Yichen left, he didn't remember what happened after that. Hua Jin went to Natalia's room, but the room was empty. Just as he was about to leave, he saw a beautiful crystal ball on the table. Before he could take a closer look, he heard Yun Shishir and the nanny's voices outside the door. Young Miss is in the back garden. Back garden? I saw her playing on the swing in the back garden. Hua Jin walked out of the door. When the nanny saw him, she greeted him respectfully. Young master, is she in the back garden? Yes. When the nanny saw Hua Jin, her face finally relaxed. You're finally awake. I thought you weren't feeling well. Hua Jin waved his hand. It's okay, I'm fine. I'll go check on Natalia. Yun Shishir suddenly called out to him. Actually, I'm here because I'm worried about you. You didn't pick up your phone. I'm worried that something might have happened to you. Hua Jin didn't think much of it. What's there to worry about? Alice called you, but you didn't answer. She needs to know Natalia's situation at all times. You understand? Hua Jin frowned and nodded. Okay, I'll give her a call later. Yun Shishir nodded and felt relieved. She looked at Qin Zhou and said, Then I'm going home. There are 3 little guys waiting for me at home. Alright. Hua Jin looked at Qin Zhou. What about you? Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows. It's my first time here, and you're in a hurry to chase me away? Hua Jin. I have no intention of chasing you away. Qin Zhou cleared his throat and glanced at him. You haven't shown me around your new home. As he spoke, Qin Zhou looked around and clicked his tongue. The villas here aren't cheap, right? You seem to have saved up a little after all these years. He was still a little suspicious. He knew Hua Jin's income very well. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't figure out how he could have so much money to buy a villa here. However, he didn't ask too much. After all, it was his personal matter. When Hua Jin heard this, he felt his scalp stiffen. He actually wanted to explain to Qin Zhou that he didn't buy this villa himself. Chapter 4150. However, he couldn't explain it clearly to Qin Zhou. If he couldn't explain it clearly, he was afraid that Qin Zhou would think too much. Hence, he didn't explain the origin of the villa. Forget it. I don't expect you to stay and treat me to tea. Qin Zhou's original intention was to personally hand over the contract termination letter to Hua Jin. Now that Hua Jin had signed it, the settlement document was effective. He had other things to do. He had to bring Liang Yin to a dinner later. After sending Yun Shishir downstairs, Hua Jin went downstairs and saw Liang Yin sitting on the sofa. He looked a little surprised. Why are you here? When Liang Yin saw Hua Jin, she immediately put down her teacup and stood up to greet him. I heard that you weren't feeling well, so I came to visit you. Oh, you came to visit me, Hua Jin deliberately said with disdain. Since you said you came to visit, why did you come empty-handed? Liang Yin was speechless. Hua Jin walked over and asked in a low voice, How are things going between you and Qin Zhou? Upon hearing his question, Liang Yin's face turned red. She said in annoyance, Hey, lower your voice. My voice is already very low. Hua Jin glanced at Qin Zhou. He was talking to Yun Shishir and obviously didn't notice them. Hence, he said to Liang Yin, as the saying goes, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. After I terminate the contract, Qin Zhou will definitely put all his attention on you. This way, you will have more opportunities. However, as a girl, you shouldn't be too proactive. Be more reserved, understand? You really want to terminate the contract? Why? You can't bear to? Hua Jin laughed and said, I'm just fulfilling my dream in advance. Look, I don't have to work and I can travel around the world to my heart's content. Isn't that good? Are you a mistress? Liang Yin's words were like pearls. Hua Jin's lips twitched violently. Kept woman? Qin Zhou said that with your years of income, you can't afford to buy a villa here. You must be a kept woman. Damn it. Hearing what Liang Yin said, Hua Jin was furious. Qin Zhou was actually criticizing him behind his back. Mistress. Was he that kind of gigolo? Huajin, I'm leaving. Xianxia suddenly interrupted his thoughts and waved at him. Huajin's smile immediately changed. He walked to the door and watched as Xianxia left. Then he retracted his smile and looked at the man beside him with resentment. Qin Zhou only felt an incomparably resentful gaze land on him. He was still a little surprised as to why Huajin was glaring at him like that. Liang Yin snickered behind him. Qin Zhou was speechless. Why are you staring at me like that? Nothing. Huajin said angrily, didn't you say you were busy? If there's anything else, I won't keep you. This was a serious order to chase him out. Qin Zhou was secretly puzzled by Huajin's sudden change in attitude. However, it was getting late and it was indeed time to leave. He turned around and said to Liang Yin, let's go. We're in a hurry. Liang Yin stood up and walked to Qin Zhou's side. Seeing that Huajin still had that resentful expression on his face, Qin Zhou was baffled and left. It was only after the two of them left that Huajin finally reacted. His current state was no different from being a kept woman. Chapter 4151. Forget it. Why did he have to think about such messy things? Huajin took out his cell phone. As expected, he saw many missed calls. A few of them were from Alice. But did he not wake up after so many calls? He remembered that his cell phone's ringtone was set very loudly. Moreover, his cell phone was placed beside his pillow. Was he sleeping too soundly? Did he not hear such a loud ringtone? Could it be that something had really happened to him? Just as he was wondering, Huajin suddenly realized that his cell phone had been set to silent mode. He was even more shocked. His cell phone had been ringing and vibrating all the time. Why had it been set to silent mode for no reason? No wonder he did not wake up after so many calls. Did someone touch his cell phone? Huajin did not have time to think too much. He dialed Alice's number as he walked towards the back garden. The call went through very quickly. Alice's nervous voice came from the other end. Huajin. It's me. Phew, Alice heaved a sigh of relief. Why didn't you pick up after calling you so many times? I fell asleep, Huajin explained. I accidentally set my cell phone to silent mode, so maybe I didn't hear it. Alice was stunned for a moment before she muttered, false alarm. Next time, don't set your cell phone to silent mode. Be careful. Otherwise, if you miss my call, I'll feel uneasy. How's Natalia now? Alice asked worriedly. Huajin happened to walk to the balcony. From his angle, he could see Natalia playing on the swing in the back garden. The little girl could actually sit still. Even if she was alone, she could still enjoy herself. He replied, she's fine. Now, she's playing on the swing by herself. You didn't notice anything strange about her, right? Strange? Huajin shook his head. No. After a pause, he suddenly changed the topic. Speaking of which, does Natalia really have dual personality disorder? Yes. What happened? So far, no one has discovered what her second personality is like. Even you don't know, right? When Alice heard this, she sighed helplessly. I haven't known her for a long time, but her illness is different from Yu's. Her second personality was created by an outsider, and it's not a split mental world. What's the difference between this and Yu? Apart from the fact that one is a split in self and the other is a split in others, there doesn't seem to be any difference. You're wrong, Alice replied. Split personalities have a strong sense of belonging to their own bodies and are independent. However, if it is created by others, it cannot be ruled out that it can be controlled. Controlled? Since Natalia's personality was created by the outside world, then it can be controlled. Then I have to suspect that her other personality can be controlled. This is not the same nature. I still don't understand. After all, Huajin was especially unfamiliar with this field. Chapter 4152. A scary idea? Huajin didn't know why, but when he heard Alice's voice, he couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. Alice said slowly, Do you know about the Personality Society? Personality Society? This unfamiliar term made Huajin a little confused. He said without hiding anything, I've never heard of it. It's normal that you don't know about it. However, the personality society may sound complicated, but it's actually very simple. Alice explained to him. The personality society is a society formed by many different personalities. These personalities live in the same body, but they each have their own duties. Among the personalities, there will be a leader who will be responsible for managing the other personalities. At the same time, this kind of personality also has the right to exile the other personalities. Is there such a case? Alice continued. So, Professor Romanka hopes to create a personality society and cultivate a leader personality. Finally, all the personalities other than the leader personality will be exiled, leaving only the leader personality. This will completely cure the multiple personalities. He has always wanted to conquer this field, but I feel that his idea is too eager for quick success. If in the end, these personalities can't be controlled, then the so-called personality society will be the real disaster. When Hua Jin heard this, he was terrified. Personality society? How is that possible? Since it's a personality, then gradually, it will have its own independent thoughts. Aren't you afraid that it will rebel? I also reminded him, but he was very firm. He even started this experiment in private. I was very opposed to it, but he won't listen to my opinion at all. Then, how did you take Natalia from him? Because, Alice smiled sinisterly. I had evidence that he used underage girls to conduct illegal experiments. Also, I threatened him that if he didn't hand her over with my ability, I would definitely ruin his reputation. He was afraid, so he handed her over to me. But, even if Natalia was handed over to you, I had to keep an eye on her at all times. No one knows what her second personality is like. If it's a dangerous personality, I have to take her back. Hua Jin nodded. Alice sighed. I'm worried about you. If you develop feelings for Natalia, you won't be able to bear to part with her. Gong Jie entrusted her to me, so I will definitely take good care of her. If you want to bring her back, I will definitely cooperate. Then, report her situation to me at any time. Sorry to trouble you. It's nothing. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Hua Jin hung up. He stood on the balcony and looked in the direction of the swing, but he suddenly realized that the person had disappeared. Where is he? Just now, he saw her sitting on the swing, enjoying herself so much. Just as Hua Jin was wondering what was going on, Natalia's seductive voice came from behind him. Are you looking for me? Hua Jin was startled. He quickly turned around and saw Natalia standing behind him with her hands clasped behind her back, smiling obediently. Just now, I saw you standing here talking on the phone. I guess that you must be looking for me, right? Chapter 4153. Hua Jin turned back to look in the direction of the garden swing. It was quite a distance away from here. Could it be that this guy knows how to use the blink skill? How did you get here? Natalia looked like she was sizing up an idiot. Of course I walked over. Could it be that they flew over? I don't have any special abilities. Hua Jin muttered to himself, why didn't I see you walking over? You were on the phone just now. You seemed very serious. Natalia asked curiously, who was it? Hua Jin pondered for a moment and immediately said, it was a friend. Natalia didn't like to be close to Alice. She was very unhappy with Alice's behavior, which was close to checking on her. Hence, Hua Jin avoided mentioning Alice in front of her. Natalia did not like Alice, and he knew that little secret. However, Natalia still guessed it. Alice? How? How did you know? From your expression, it seems like you don't want me to know who it was. Then I guessed it right away. It must be that bad woman. Bad woman? Hua Jin was a little helpless. He squatted down in front of her and said patiently, Alice isn't a bad woman. She's just a doctor. She's just helping you with your illness. When Natalia heard that, the smile on her face collapsed. She pursed her pink lips and corrected him seriously. I'm not sick. I'm not a patient. I don't need her to monitor me. I'm not a criminal. She seemed to be very angry. Many people said that she was sick, that she was a patient. However, she didn't feel that she was a patient. She had seen patients before. She felt that she didn't fit the word sick. She didn't understand. She was fine. Why did everyone look at her as if she was sick? She didn't like those pitiful looks. It was as if she was a terminally ill person. She wasn't. Okay, you're not. I actually know. Natalia took a deep breath. You've discussed it with Alice. You're in charge of monitoring me, aren't you? Hua Jin was speechless. What he didn't know was that Natalia was so sensitive. Despite her young age, she had already noticed all of this. Seeing his expression, Natalia was disappointed and even disappointed. Slowly, she started to get closer to Hua Jin and developed feelings for Hua Jin. However, just as she was about to open her heart, this realization made her extremely disappointed. She looked around coldly and expressionlessly said, "This beautiful garden is just for me to stay in this prison. At least, I won't be so lonely. You said you wanted to accompany me, but it was only because Daddy couldn't bear to see me alone, right?" Hua Jin was at a loss for words, not knowing what to say. Sometimes I find it strange. Why is it that the way you look at me, you clearly want to be friends with me, but it makes me feel a little uncomfortable? You sympathize with me and pity me, right? Natalia's sharp question made Hua Jin a little nervous. He did pity this child, but it wasn't purely because he liked her. He didn't really like children that much. Chapter 4154. He even thought that if he was going to be alone in the future and would not be able to get married, then he would want to be a dink. He would actively do charity and donate his excess assets to those who were seriously ill or poor, but he would never think of adopting. He had accepted Gongjie's conditions only because he had a responsibility and a lot of helplessness. He didn't really like Natalia. I know you don't like me very much. Since you don't like me, I won't force you to like me. Then, please don't force yourself to like me. As Natalia said this, her lips curved into a smile. But I will still get along with you peacefully. As she said this, she turned around and walked back into the room. Hua Jin looked at her back view silently. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable sense of helplessness. How could that be? Didn't I see that your relationship with Natalia has improved a lot that day at the amusement park? It was late at night. On the balcony, Hua Jin leaned against the railing, holding his cell phone and complaining to Xianxia. Maybe I really don't have the talent to be a stay-at-home dad. I've tried my best to get on her good side, but this child is so sensitive. With just one look, she denied everything I've done. She's only 6 or 7 years old, but her mind is already so delicate and mature. When Xianxia heard this, she couldn't help but laugh. This is very similar to Yu. Is it? Yu has been very sensitive since he was young. To what extent can he do? Even with just one look, he can tell whether that person likes or dislikes him. Natalia is the same. Hua Jin sighed helplessly. I don't mean to dislike her. It's just that, she appeared too suddenly. Overnight, I was promoted from a single dog to a newbie stay-at-home dad. Although I'm a stand-in stay-at-home dad, my identity changed too quickly. I can't adjust my mentality. On this point I can understand. Xianxia continued, however, you have to think about it. You haven't experienced the process of preparation, unlike my husband. From preparing for pregnancy, to nurturing the fetus, he has been constantly preparing. A man's paternal nature was different from his maternal nature. Motherhood was innate. Perhaps when she didn't have children, she would feel an inexplicable throbbing when she saw other people's children. As for men, there were even some men who didn't realize that they were fathers until their children were 5 or 6 years old. This kind of fatherly nature is generally awakened later. I want to get close to her, Hua Jin said sincerely. You want to get close to her because you promised Alice that you would cooperate with Alice to monitor this child, right? Whenever you want to get close to her, it's because you truly want to get close to your daughter from the perspective of a father. This way, your child will also sincerely open her heart to you. Pausing for a moment, Xianxia suddenly smiled helplessly. I think this child is a little fragile and sensitive. His thoughts are even a little extreme. It's very difficult to get along with her and open up her heart. Isn't that so? Hua Jin asked for help. Then what should I do? I don't want her to guard against me like I'm a wolf. She said that she's not a patient, but she doesn't know her own physical condition. Chapter 4155. Hua-jin, maybe you don't understand? Yun Xianxia smiled. Even someone as smart and sensible as you doesn't want to be treated like a patient. He and Natalia are the same. They are both strong-willed. They can be indifferent to any contempt, but they can't take pity on them lightly. If you treat her like a patient, she will definitely be unhappy. Because she doesn't feel like a patient. She's just a little different from others. You have to think about it. Natalia didn't have a home since she was young. She didn't have a sense of belonging, so she has a stubborn personality. She can only protect herself fully like a hedgehog. Actually, you can understand that too, right? Yun Xianxia also grew up in the welfare home. She wasn't as aloof as Natalia. She was stubborn, but she didn't want to grow those thorns. Even though she had suffered so many injuries, she was still willing to smile and report to the world. Because when she was young, someone once told her something. She couldn't remember who that person was. She only remembered that one sentence. There is only one kind of heroism in this world, and that is to recognize the darkness of reality and still love it. She wanted to be this hero. But Natalia was different. She could only use her thorns to protect herself. Hua-jin seemed to be deep in thought. He said seriously, I understand. When he was young, Hua-jin often felt strange gazes from all kinds of people. They belittled him and saw him clearly. However, he had already become numb to those gazes and forgotten them. He only vaguely remembered that he was once injured and was sent to the hospital. A doctor saw him and looked at him with a look of pity and sympathy as he looked at him with bruises all over his body. That kind of gaze, however, made him feel as if his heart was about to bleed. It wasn't that he hated that gaze. It was an unfamiliar feeling. He didn't like it. I got it. Yun Xianxia asked, It's so late. Is she asleep? Yeah, she's asleep. I think so. I didn't go to her room. I'll sneak in later to take a look. Yeah, it's late. I'm going to tell you a bedtime story. Okay, good night. Hua-jin hung up the phone and placed it on the railing. He raised his head in confusion. He gazed at the night sky. This made him involuntarily recall his youth. Many times, after being beaten, he would also secretly stand under the night sky, raise his head, and ask himself, as if he was asking God, but also as if he was asking himself. When would the dark days end? At that time, life was really dark. He even felt that sometimes he had the courage to die, but not the courage to live on. But now, he could no longer remember those gloomy memories. Time could really make one forget everything. Unknowingly. It was late at night. Hua-jin quietly walked to the door of Natalia's room. He turned the doorknob, opened the door, and walked in. Natalia was already asleep on the bed, but the whole room was lit up with purple light. Hua-jin couldn't help but be curious. This kind of purple light was seductive and deep. He didn't remember buying a purple lamp before. This purple light seemed to be coming from the corner of the bed. Hua-jin curiously walked to the head of the bed and realized that the light was coming from a crystal ball. Crystal ball? Chapter 4156. Crystal ball? Is it a lamp? Hua-jin picked up the crystal ball with a weird expression. He vaguely remembered that he saw this crystal ball in her room during the day. However, he did not expect it to glow. Is it a lamp? Hua-jin looked around but could not find the switch of the lamp. Then, how did this crystal ball glow? Hua-jin's gaze fell on this magical crystal ball. He suddenly realized that there was a cloud of fog inside the crystal ball. He gently placed his hand on the surface of the crystal ball. The fog actually stuck to his palm. Separated by the thin surface of the crystal ball, the fog kept rotating, condensing, and dissipating as he touched it. What is this? He had never seen such a magical crystal ball in reality. The fog inside seemed to have a soul. He turned his head and looked at Natalia, who was lying on the bed. The latter was sleeping quietly under the blanket. She was so quiet that it seemed like she was not alive. Hua-jin's gaze fell on the crystal ball again. He could not help but feel suspicious. Crystal ball? Yes. Hua-jin told Alice about the crystal ball. Alice did not know why, but she was silent for a long time. You said that the crystal ball was purple and there was fog inside. Hua-jin described the crystal ball again. On the other end, Alice's breathing stopped. How is that possible? She seemed to be mumbling to herself. What's wrong? Impossible, Alice said in a low voice. There is no such crystal ball in the world. But I saw it with my own eyes. Impossible. Alice frowned and said in a serious tone, that kind of crystal ball is usually used for hypnosis treatment. It is something that only the hypnotist would have. How could she have it? Hua Jin did not know why, but he was stunned. He rubbed his forehead and looked at the bare wall in a daze. Is there really such a thing as hypnosis in this world? Hua Jin did not believe it. In his impression, such a crystal ball only existed in the magical world. It was a tool used for divination. In reality, it was used for hypnosis? Is there really such a thing as hypnosis in this world? Alice said coldly, do you want me to do it myself and let you experience it? Hua Jin was even more surprised. You know how to hypnotize people? Alice was silent. It seemed that Gong Jie did not formally introduce her to Hua Jin. Hua Jin did not know that she was an experienced hypnotist. If you don't mind, I can show you what hypnosis is. It's fake. Hua Jin did not think much of it. If she had a strong will, how could she be hypnotized by you? Alice rolled her eyes. How do you think I can erase you use memory? But you didn't succeed. Alice was speechless. So, it seems that you are not a very successful hypnotist. Alice gritted her teeth in anger. This guy, is he asking for a beating? Alright, I got it. Pay attention to everything you do. Then, Hua Jin asked curiously, what about the crystal ball? Just pretend that you don't know about it. Pausing for a moment, Alice said with genuine concern, you're so stupid. I'm really worried that with your intelligence, you'll be crushed by Natalia. Enough. Don't doubt my IQ. Chapter 4157. A few days later, news of Hua Jin's retirement from the entertainment industry was released by Huanyu's official media. Hua Jin attended the press conference as well. This seemed to imply that this would be the last time he would appear in front of the media in a while. He wore a white shirt and black trousers. Coupled with his British suit, he looked solemn and steady. He had always dressed as a pretty boy and had a neutral style. Many people couldn't get used to him suddenly changing into a gentlemanly style. He didn't want to come at first, but in order to show his sincerity, at least to the fans, he decided to make an appearance and announce this matter in public. Qin Zhou and Ji Lin attended the press conference as well. Before the press conference, Ji Lin had just arrived and severely criticized him. I think there's something wrong with you. Ji Lin stared at him coldly. The latter looked innocent. What do you mean? Ji Lin said sternly, look, most of your artists have retired. Qin Zhou was speechless. Was this his fault? Qin Zhou glanced coldly at Hua Jin. The latter tugged at the corner of his lips guiltily, revealing an awkward but polite smile. What can I do if I can't keep them? Ji Lin continued, I heard that you recently signed a newcomer. Are you planning to support her? Yeah. Her name is Liang Yin. Oh. Ji Lin's next sentence was enough to choke someone to death. She came by the unspoken rules? Qin Zhou cleared his throat and said, I don't touch these weird things. I've seen that girl's photo. She's quite good-looking and has the potential to become a big star. If Ji Lin said that she had the potential to become a big star, then she would definitely become a big star. When Hua Jin heard this, he immediately stood up and patted his chest. I recommended Liang Yin to Qin Zhou. Qin Zhou and Ji Lin looked at him coldly at the same time. Hua Jin was so scared that he choked and couldn't say another word. Pretend I didn't say anything. When Ji Lin saw Hua Jin, he looked a little unhappy. I heard that you have an illegitimate daughter? Hua Jin was speechless. That's not true, okay? Has Lord Ji also started to believe in the rumors? I don't know if it's a rumor or not, but I know that your retirement has caused a lot of financial losses to the company. Don't think that I don't know about it because you didn't pay the penalty for going through the back door. Ji Lin's words made Qin Zhou and Hua Jin tremble. Hua Jin said awkwardly, although I've left the entertainment industry, I can still work for the company for free. Working for free? You're so dedicated. Ji Lin was famous for his poisonous tongue, even more so than Qin Zhou. In Huanyu, Muyajia and Qinzhou would consciously step aside if Jilin was number 2 in terms of poisonous tongues. Hua Jin did not dare to provoke him, let alone convict him. Moreover, he was in the wrong this time, so he simply did not say a word. Jilin did not really intend to be mean to him. Instead, he gently patted Hua Jin on the shoulder and sighed. Forget it. You've worked hard in Huanyu even if you haven't made any contributions. You can consider it an early retirement. After all, you've worked harder than anyone else for so many years. With that, Jilin walked up to the speaker's seat. Hua Jin silently watched Jilin's back. For some reason, his heart throbbed a little. Although Jilin had a poisonous tongue and looked cold on the surface, he was actually very soft-hearted. Chapter 4158. He was also aware of how tired and exhausted Hua Jin must be after being in the entertainment industry for so many years. Putting aside other factors, as a friend, he sincerely hoped that Hua Jin could leave such a foul place like the entertainment industry. Qinzhou walked to Hua Jin's side and raised his eyebrows. I have a feeling that after this press conference, your Weibo will explode. Hua Jin replied. I think I can already imagine it. Male and female artists were different. The popularity of female artists was not as good as that of male artists. After all, the entertainment industry's target audience was mostly female. And the female community was also the most irrational. If they knew that their idol was leaving the entertainment industry, most of them would definitely break down. For some reason, the news of Hua Jin leaving the entertainment industry seemed to spread like wildfire. Qinzhou suspected that it was Huanyu's internal staff who spread the news. Otherwise, no one outside would know about it. The news of Hua Jin's decision to leave the entertainment industry quickly spread among Hua Jin's many fan groups. But no one was willing to believe it. They would rather believe the news that Hua Jin had an illegitimate daughter and perhaps even a secret marriage. They would rather believe that Hua Jin was leaving the entertainment industry and leaving their site. Idols were also known as idols. Sometimes, as idols, they would become the spiritual sustenance of fans in many situations. Without spiritual sustenance all of a sudden, it would be hard for them to get used to it. The press conference was about to start. The media started to take their seats. Many media outlets had also received news that Hua Jin might be leaving the entertainment industry, but they weren't sure if this press conference was to clarify the rumors or to really announce his departure. The press conference started. Qinzhou was concise and made a short opening speech. Following that, he announced that Huanyu's original artist, Hua Jin, would be leaving the entertainment industry for personal reasons. Hua Jin stood up and bowed slightly. Through the camera, he expressed his regret to his fans and promised that even if he left the entertainment industry, he would update his personal life on his personal Weibo account. He would also participate in charity in the future in the name of Hua Jin's fan club. A reporter stood up and asked curiously, "Is your withdrawal from the entertainment industry related to the rumors about you having an illegitimate daughter?" The scene was in an uproar. Many people were familiar with the rumor that Hua Jin had an illegitimate daughter, but no one thought that someone would raise this issue in public. It was a little awkward for a moment. Hua Jin faced it calmly. He said truthfully, "I believe that many people have seen the photos of you secretly taken by those media reporters. Regarding this matter, I am here to explain. That girl is not my biological daughter. She is an orphan that I adopted. However, I want to give her a warm home. At the same time, I want to protect her from the outside world. I'm sorry for the negative impact this news has brought to the public, but I also hope that the media will not interfere with my personal life in the future. It doesn't matter if you secretly took photos of me. The child is innocent. I hope that she can grow up in a good environment and have a childhood without any interference." All in all, Hua Jin had left the entertainment industry. This matter had been confirmed by Huanyu's press conference. Chapter 4159. No one had imagined that Hua Jin would quit the entertainment industry. This news caused a sensation in the entertainment industry. Especially Hua Jin's fans, they couldn't accept this fact at all. As fans, they were already used to seeing their idol every day. Whether it was variety shows, movies, or TV series, Hua Jin's schedule had always been very frequent. As a real young actor with good acting skills, it was rare to see a young actor with such potential. Hua Jin's acting skills could definitely be ranked among the top of the A-list popular actors. His temporary departure from the entertainment industry was indeed a big loss for the entertainment industry. On the second day after Hua Jin announced his retirement from the entertainment industry, Weibo's server crashed. The news of #Hua Jin's retirement from the entertainment industry quickly dominated the headlines of major media websites. Because of the huge amount of traffic data, the entire server was in a state of paralysis. Many users couldn't log in. There were even some haters who wanted to make groundless accusations that Hua Jin decided to quit the entertainment industry because of an underground relationship. Weibo exploded. Guan Yu's official website also exploded. On Hua Jin's personal Weibo, the number of reposts and comments on his latest Weibo post quickly exceeded 7 digits and was moving towards 10 million comments. The public once again witnessed the terrifying effect of Hua Jin's popularity. For some reason, many media outlets found out about Hua Jin's residence. However, due to the layers of protection set up by Gong Jie, they couldn't break in at all. However, Hua Jin also saw on the internet that many media outlets were secretly squatting at the entrance of the villa, just to be the first to take pictures of Hua Jin's retirement from the entertainment industry. This was big news. No one wanted to miss it. Recently, Natalia's situation was still stable. However, Hua Jin thought that he must protect Natalia well and not let her be exposed to the media. Otherwise, Gong Jie would definitely slit his throat. Just as Hua Jin was in a difficult situation hiding from the paparazzi, Xianxia suddenly called. "Your brother-in-law is on annual leave. Why don't we go to Saipan together? You, take Natalia with you." Saipan. Hua Jin was somewhat hesitant. "But there are paparazzi at the door. I'm afraid that I'll be surrounded if I go out." Xianxia was speechless. "Don't tell me, you haven't been out since the press conference?" Hua Jin was surprised. "How did you know?" "Just pretend I didn't ask." Xianxia pondered for a long time before she suddenly said, "It's okay. Don't worry. Your brother-in-law will take care of these problems. Since it's rare for him to take a vacation, and you've been in deep trouble in the country recently, why don't you go out for a vacation and relax?" "All right." Hua Jin agreed. "But I'll have to ask Natalia for her opinion." "How is Natalia these days?" "She's not bad, but she doesn't like to talk much. It's inevitable that she'll feel a little depressed if she's always at home, especially at her age. She'll definitely feel bored if she doesn't have the chance to go out and play." "Is that so?" "Well, anyway, it's settled then. You can ask for her opinion again." "Okay." The beach? Chapter 4160. What's wrong? Hua Jin suddenly became nervous. "You don't want to go?" "It's not that I don't want to, it's just..." Natalia was a little hesitant. "What's the seaside like?" She did not look forward to going to a place that she had never been to before. Unlike other children who were full of anticipation when they heard about the seaside, she felt an inexplicable sense of uneasiness. She felt uneasy about going to an unfamiliar place. Hua Jin smiled and described it to her. "The seaside is a place that faces the sea. The blue sea and the blue sky make it seem like the sky and the sea are connected when you look from afar. The golden sand and the warm sun make you sunbathe or float in the sea. Actually, going to the seaside is a good way to relax. What do you think? Do you want to go?" Natalia's eyes lit up when she heard what he said. It was as if she could vaguely picture the beautiful scene in her mind through his description. "It sounds like a great place." Natalia finally showed a rare smile. Hua Jin looked at her smiling eyes and was deeply affected by her pure and innocent smile. There was a pure beauty in Natalia's smile. It was the kind of beauty that was not tainted by any impurities. It was the purest kind of beauty in the world. He could not help but squeeze her little hand. "Let's go together, okay?" "Okay." The itinerary was thus finalized. This time, Xianxia and Muyaja would bring their families along for the trip to Saipan. Xiao Yichen, Yu, Lisa, and Yueyao were all present. Before Yueyao was 3 years old, Xianxia did not bring her to other places mainly because of safety concerns. Because of the shooting incident in the square last time, her heart was more or less covered with a layer of shadow. Most importantly, Yueyao was too young. At that time, she had just learned how to walk. If she were to bring her to a place too far away, she was afraid that there would be some mistakes. More importantly, Mu Yaja did not have much time to accompany her. Recently, he had taken his annual leave and suggested that Yueyao should explore the vast world with him since she was already so old. Yun Shishir gladly agreed to it when she heard that. The family trip that she had been looking forward to was finally here. She had been looking forward to it day and night, to the stars and the moon, all because she wanted to go on a family trip. Mu Yaja was the one who suggested Saipan. Yun Shishir had been there with him before, and she could not forget the scenery of Saipan's coast. Hence, she decided to set her sights on that place for this trip. Hua Jin was mainly worried about the paparazzi, but this was not a problem for Mu Yaja at all. The day before their departure, Mu Yaja sent his men to do a carpet search of the villa's entrance. Unsurprisingly, they caught many paparazzi who had been waiting for a long time. After a series of warnings, no one dared to offend them again. He did not make things difficult for the media reporters. Mu Yaja was no longer as fierce as he was when he was young. He was much more amiable and did not make things difficult for them. The paparazzi who were caught thought that they would lose their jobs. They did not expect Mu Yaja to be so lenient. They wished they could go back to the company and publish an article praising him. Chapter 4161. On the day of departure, Hua Jin woke up early in the morning to pack his luggage and get ready to leave. He had bought quite a number of seaside dresses for Natalia. Some of them were floral designs, while others were Lolita designs. No matter how he looked at them, he could not put them down. Imagining how adorable Natalia would look in them made him look forward to it. After packing his luggage, he went to wake Natalia up. Ever since he had become Natalia's guardian, Hua Jin had been very hardworking in his learning to be a new stay-at-home dad. After the press conference announcing his retirement from the entertainment industry, he hadn't had many opportunities to go out, so he focused on learning how to braid hair. The internet was very advanced now. Even though he knew nothing about braiding, he learned very quickly through the online tutorials. In a short time, he had learned several ways to braid hair. Thus, Hua Jin proudly showed off his braiding skills to Natalia. In that way, it sounded like he was asking for a reward. It was just that this was clearly what he liked. Which girl didn't like to be beautiful? Natalia also liked to be beautiful. Ever since Hua Jin had braided her hair, it was the first time she had seen how beautiful hair could be braided. When she was in Miami Hospital, no one had taken care of her as meticulously as Hua Jin. He did everything no matter how big or small, and even used his brain to braid her hair. Thus, her hair was always loose. Fortunately, her hair was very good. Otherwise, it would be hard to imagine what she would look like if her hair was always loose. That morning, before they left, Hua Jin volunteered to braid Natalia's hair after she woke up. Natalia changed into the floral dress that Hua Jin had chosen and sat obediently in front of the dressing mirror. She looked at herself in the mirror with her lips pursed. Her eyes were as beautiful as crescent moons. Hua Jin followed the new hairstyle and braided her hair carefully. Natalia looked at Hua Jin's serious expression through the mirror. She opened her mouth, but didn't say anything. Hua Jin caught a glimpse of her expression and asked gently, "What's wrong? You seem to have something to say." "Uncle, do you know magic?" "Why do you ask?" Hua Jin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the same time, he was a little surprised. Natalia tilted her head and swung her legs back and forth. "Because I feel that the hair you braided is like magic. It's so beautiful." "Ha!" Hua Jin said seriously, "That's because you're good looking as a doll." "Really?" Natalia looked at herself in the mirror and smiled sweetly. It had to be said that the braiding technique Hua Jin was so proud of had pulled him closer to Natalia. If the colleagues who were familiar with Hua Jin in the past saw this scene, their eyes would probably pop out. Hua Jin had always been a little demon king in the production team. He was arrogant, rebellious, and difficult to get close to. She didn't expect that he would have such a gentle side to him in front of Natalia. He was so meticulous in braiding her hair. The strands of hair were nimbly outlined by his jade-like fingertips. There was an indescribable sense of beauty in his movements. When he was almost done, Natalia looked surprised as if she found it novel. Chapter 4162. Is this a new one? Don't you like it? She pursed her lips and shook her head. I like it a lot. Really? Does it look good? Yes, it looks good. Natalia nodded slightly, looking a little shy. Hua Jin suddenly felt very proud. He naturally felt a sense of accomplishment to be able to make Natalia approve of his work. This hair braid was also very suitable for Natalia. Natalia had a typical oval-shaped face, a high nose bridge, and deep eyebrows. However, it was typical that she had not yet grown up. Therefore, her facial features were not as deep as those of European girls. However, there were already hints of exquisiteness. Our Natalia is the most beautiful little princess in the world. Hua Jin squatted gently beside her and held her shoulders. Looking at the porcelain doll in the mirror, he suddenly felt that it was pleasing to the eye. At the same time, he also felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. Suddenly, he could not help but have a thought in his mind. If Natalia was really his daughter, how many would there be? This way, he would not have to be jealous of Muyaja for having such a cute daughter. However, on second thought, even if she was not his biological daughter, so what? Was blood relations really that important? He was not old-fashioned and old-fashioned. He felt that there must be a family line to pass on, and he did not think about having a child. He felt that raising a child was more important than having a child. Why not treat Natalia as his real biological daughter? Hua Jin gently stroked her face, his eyes filled with love. Natalia's gaze undoubtedly met his eyes, but she immediately turned her face away shyly. She seemed to have returned to her timid self when they first met. Hua Jin could not help but be stunned. He frowned slightly. The reason why he was a little stunned was because he vaguely realized that Natalia seemed to have changed. He vaguely remembered that one time, he stood on the balcony and saw her when he turned around. It was the same face, but for some reason, Natalia gave him the feeling that she was a demonic little witch. However, the Natalia in front of him now had become the shy doll when they first met. Could it be they were two different personalities, but he didn't realize it? Hua Jin had some doubts, but he didn't show it too obviously. In the past few days, he seemed to have forgotten the task that Alice had given him. Alice hoped that he would be able to copy Natalia's personality. He wasn't really going to draw a portrait. He was just going to record Natalia's personality and appearance every day. Recently, he had been so busy with his withdrawal from the entertainment industry that he had forgotten about it. What happened? Natalia asked when she saw him in a daze. Oh, it's nothing. Hua Jin took a hand-knitted hat from the side and gently put it on her head. A handmade lily was pinned on her knitted hat, making Natalia look pure and cute. What a nice hat. Natalia couldn't put the hat down. Hua Jin said with a smile, "Bring it with you when you go to the beach, okay?" The wind at the beach was strong, and so was the sun. In order to protect against the sun, Hua Jin had prepared a considerable amount of sunscreen so that he wouldn't come back with a tan. Especially with Natalia's tender and fair skin, it was easy for her skin to peel when the wind blew and the sun shone on her. Chapter 4163. At around 10 in the morning, Hua Jin and Natalia left the house. Hua Jin had arranged for the airport to send them off. The car was already parked at the entrance, waiting for them. The chauffeur and assistant immediately got out of the car and put their luggage in the trunk. Hua Jin carried Natalia to the back seat and got into the car himself. He and Xianxia had agreed to meet at the airport. The flight was at 1 in the afternoon, 2 hours earlier. It seemed that lunch would have to be served at the airport. When they arrived at the airport, Xianxia called to say that she had not arrived yet. When he asked, it turned out that Yueyao had been lazy in the morning and had not woken up. Hence, they had only left now and might arrive later. Xianxia did not forget to remind Hua Jin to take Natalia for lunch first. When traveling in order to catch a flight, 3 meals were rushed. However, there were still many restaurants in the airport. Most of them served simple meals that catered to different international customers. There were American restaurants, Chinese restaurants, Italian restaurants, and so on. Natalia said that she wanted to eat roast duck, but it put Hua Jin in a difficult position. Roast duck? Where would there be authentic roast duck in the airport? Natalia had recently become obsessed with roast duck. She had also shown a great passion for Chinese food. Perhaps it was because she had grown up in the United States. In that kind of environment, most of the food in the United States was high-calorie food. For example, hot dogs, hamburgers, cheese, and the modified American Chinese food that had been brought to the United States. However, the taste was not ideal. It had been adjusted according to the taste of the American people, and it had lost the original taste of Chinese food. After coming to China, ever since Hua Jin brought Natalia to try roast duck, she had shown a great passion for Chinese food. It was delicious. However, most of the restaurants in the airport were simple meals. Where would there be authentic Peking roast duck? It was not easy to find a simple Chinese restaurant. Hua Jin looked around and finally chose a roast duck set meal. It was not authentic, but at least it was roast duck. He took a bite. The taste was average, but it wasn't bad. It was just a far cry from the authentic roast duck. He was worried that Natalia wouldn't be used to the taste, but he didn't expect that Natalia would be so easily satisfied. With delicious food in front of her, she didn't care about her image anymore. Little glutton. Was he so easily satisfied? Hua Jin cursed in his heart. How bad was the food in the United States? That was why the little fellow was so satisfied with such a set of barbecue duck. Natalia ate slowly, chewing and swallowing slowly. Since they had plenty of time, after lunch, Hua Jin took Natalia to the shops in the airport. There were many duty-free shops in the airport. It just so happened that the skincare products at home were used up, so Hua Jin bought some goods. Natalia was bored. She couldn't understand what the delicate bottles and jars on the shelves were for. It wasn't pretty, and it couldn't be eaten. Therefore, she pestered Hua Jin to leave. Hua Jin was queuing up to pay the bill. Seeing that it was almost his turn, he coaxed, "Wait for me, okay? Just a while, I'll be done soon." But it's so stuffy here. There were many people in the duty-free shop. The crowd was crowded, and the air was muddy. Chapter 4164. Natalia was not used to the air here, so she said to Hua Jin, "I'll wait for you outside, okay?" Outside, Hua Jin looked outside the door hesitantly, feeling a little uneasy. Natalia said, "Don't worry, I won't run around. Besides, didn't you say that it'll be soon?" Hua Jin thought for a moment and nodded. "You promised me that you won't run around." If she got lost and Gong Jie asked about it, he would lose his head. Natalia ran out, and Hua Jin watched as she sat on the bench outside the door. Only then did he feel at ease and continue queuing. Natalia waited outside the door, feeling bored. The waiting time was especially long and boring. She thought that she had waited for more than 10 minutes. When she came back to her senses, she stood up and walked to the electronic clock in the hall to look at it. She realized that only 5 minutes had passed. Ding dong. Passengers heading to the Maldives, please take note that your flight DH965 from Eastern Airlines is now boarding. Please bring your personal belongings with you. Oh no, it's too late. It's too late. Not far away, a panicked voice was heard. Before Natalia could react, she was knocked to the ground by a tremendous force. The knitted hat on her head flew far away. Natalia fell to the ground, her back slamming hard against the marble floor. She was in excruciating pain. The person who had bumped into her was a middle-aged woman. It was obvious that she would not make it in time for the flight. Even though she had knocked down the child, she stopped to take a look but did not come over to help her. She did not even look at her as she left in a hurry. Whispers broke out around her. They were secretly angry that this woman had no manners. Even if she knocked down an adult, she should be concerned about their well-being, let alone a child. She was too rude. By the time Natalia realized that the culprit had run far away, she felt a little depressed. She felt that the bones in her back were about to break after being knocked down so hard for no reason. She stood up and looked at the knitted hat that had fallen in the distance. Just as she was about to walk over and pick it up, a young man was one step ahead of her and picked it up first. Natalia stood where she was in a daze. She silently observed the gentle young man in front of her. The young man was wearing a snow-white shirt, which made his skin look as white as jade. His figure was tall and slender, and he seemed to be in his teens. His neat black hair outlined the outline of his thin face even more clearly. He turned around and looked at Natalia, who was still standing at the same spot. He smirked and walked up to her. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Natalia's purple eyes and was stunned. He had seen many mixed-race children with blue eyes, green eyes, amber eyes, and even pure black eyes, but he had never seen such beautiful purple eyes. Her purple eyes were as pure as beautiful gems. Natalia's eyes flashed. She looked at the hat in his hand and immediately reminded him, "Big brother, this is my hat." The youth immediately reacted, but his gaze was still unable to move away from her eyes for a long time. Natalia looked at him with displeasure and snatched the hat from his hand. "Why do you keep staring at me?" Chapter 4165. "It's nothing." The young man reacted and asked cautiously, "Are you hurt from the fall?" Sensing his concern, Natalia's sharpness faded a little. She nodded gently and said vaguely, "I'm fine." At this moment, a woman's slightly worried voice came from behind. "Linshi? Why did you run so fast?" Chu Ho walked over nervously. She passed through the crowd and finally found him. However, when she saw the girl standing in front of him, she was momentarily stunned. She also saw Natalia's purple eyes. A normal person's first reaction would naturally be surprise. After all, violet eyes were not commonly seen. He was considered to be well-informed and had seen countless people, but this was the first time she had seen purple eyes. Looking at the beautiful little girl in front of her, she was momentarily stunned. It was normal for her to be in a daze. Behind them, the main group had also arrived. Gu Jinglian held Xiaobao's hand, and a lot of people from the Gu family who were worried about sending them off, such as Uncle Fu and Aunt Fu. It was as if Gu Jinglian had to go on a vacation with his family and was worried that his enemies would come and bomb the airport. Ever since Chu Ho gave birth to a pair of twins for him, she had been breastfeeding after her confinement. The honeymoon that Gu Jinglian had promised her was delayed again and again. Originally, Chu Ho did not have much expectations for the honeymoon. She did not say that she had been to many places, but she had visited many places, even if it was in the name of a business trip. However, slowly her friends began to post photos of the trip on their WeChat moments. The blue sky and the sea stretched as far as the eye could see. Chu Ho, who was in Shanghai, seemed to have not seen the blue sky for a long time. Therefore, the idea of going on a honeymoon was put on the agenda again. During this period, Gu Jinglian had finally settled the work at hand and entrusted the two Xiaobao's care. Therefore, he decided to go on a vacation to Saipan. Gu Jinglian was initially a little guilty. After all, the honeymoon had been delayed for so long and it was only now that it was settled. However, Chu Ho did not mind. At least it was put on the agenda, wasn't it? Gu Jinglian and Xiaobao walked over. Xiaobao saw Lin Shi at first glance, but then he was quickly attracted by the little girl in front of him. He narrowed his eyes until he saw clearly that Natalia's eyes were indeed purple. He was surprised. "But what beautiful eyes," he sighed with emotion. However, Natalia was not used to his words, even though he thought they were praises. Since she was young, she knew that she was different from other children. In terms of background, she was an orphan. Since she was young, she did not have a father or a mother, let alone a father or a mother. In terms of appearance, she grew up in China, but she looked different from many Chinese children. Her eyes, in particular, always caused her to be criticized. She had always been treated as an anomaly by the other children. Therefore, when others looked at her kindly, she would feel very uneasy. Coincidentally, Hua Jin walked out. When Natalia saw him, she immediately threw herself into his arms, feeling wronged. Hua Jin hugged her tightly. He did not know what was going on. When he looked up, he was dumbfounded. President Gu. Chapter 4166. He was shocked. He didn't expect to bump into Gu Jinglian at the airport. Gu Jinglian looked at him and then at Natalia, who was in his arms. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. "Is this your daughter?" Hua Jin was speechless. Should he admit it? Hua Jin lowered his head to look at Natalia's aggrieved expression. He did not know what was going on, nor did he know if she had been bullied. Hence he nodded. Yes. Gu Jinglian didn't look surprised when he found out that she was his daughter. Hua Jin squatted down and asked gently, "What's wrong? You don't look happy. Did someone bully you?" Behind him, Gu Linshi immediately explained, "A woman was in a hurry and knocked her down. She left without saying goodbye." "Ah, so that's what happened?" Hua Jin immediately became nervous. "Does it hurt?" Natalia pursed her lips and nodded gently. "Yes, a little. Where does it hurt?" Here. Natalia didn't want to talk about her bruised butt, so she rubbed her elbow. When she fell, she instinctively supported herself. Hence, her elbow was bruised. Hua Jin rolled up her sleeves and scrutinized her seriously. It was bruised. His heart ached. He gently breathed on it but didn't rub it. He only felt at ease after making sure that it wasn't fractured. He couldn't rub it now. Otherwise, a small bruise would expand after being rubbed. Hua Jin carried Natalia and couldn't help but sigh. "You're so strong. You didn't even cry. You're amazing." Natalia pouted. She was obviously unhappy. She hugged Hua Jin's shoulder and said, "I don't want to be here anymore." "Then let's wait over there, okay?" Natalia nodded. Hua Jin nodded at Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho before he carried Natalia to the departure lounge. Xiao Bao became excited. "Wow, that big sister is so pretty." "Lin," she snorted, "maybe she's younger than you. But she's so pretty. I see that you keep staring at her as if you're obsessed with her." Gu Linshi blushed and immediately retorted, "Don't talk nonsense." "Why are you blushing?" Xiao Bao circled him curiously and muttered, "Why are you so shy?" "Ha!" Chu Ho couldn't help but burst into laughter. Lin Shi pouted and looked at Chu Ho. "Mom, can you be a little more reserved? Don't laugh so boldly." "Bold and unrestrained? How is that bold and unrestrained?" Chu Ho glanced at him. "Xiao Bao is right. You did keep staring at that little sister. Have you fallen in love with her?" Even Chu Ho was teasing him. Gu Linshi turned his face away and pretended to be dead. "Don't play dead." Chu Ho egged him on. "If you like a girl, don't let go of the chance. It just so happens that your dad knows that uncle." Gu Linshi's face turned even redder. "Don't talk nonsense. I'm just surprised that her eyes are purple. I've never seen such beautiful eyes." Chu Ho agreed when he heard this. Indeed, that girl's eyes are really beautiful. Chapter 4167. Purple eyes are indeed rare. At least, I've never seen one before. Gu Jinglian said, "I just arrived. I thought you were the one who bullied her and made her cry." Gu Linshi disagreed. "Why would I bully a girl?" Although Linshi was young, he had his own set of philosophies. One of them was that boys should never bully girls. Therefore, he would never bully other girls. Gu Jinglian said to Chu Ho, "Wait here for me. I'll go and get the boarding pass done." Chu Ho chuckled. Gu Jinglian had to do everything himself now. Mu Yaja and Yun Shishir finally arrived at the last moment of the check-in process. When they finally boarded the plane and entered the first-class cabin, Mu Yaja was surprised to find that the first-class cabin was full of familiar faces. The first-class cabin was divided into two sides. On the left side were Mu Yaja, Yun Shishir, Yu Yueyao, Xiao Yichen, and Lisa. On the other hand, Gu Jinglian's family of 4 occupied the seats on the other side. The two families were separated by an aisle. When Mu Yaja boarded the plane, he saw Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho staring at them. "It's you? It's you." He didn't expect to meet him here. Gu Jinglian raised his eyebrows and sized up Mu Yaja. He snorted coldly. "Where are you going?" Mu Yaja said, "Saipan." Gu Jinglian was speechless. Mu Yaja found it interesting. "Which hotel are you staying at?" "Where are you staying?" "Siren's Hotel." They said it almost in unison. Gu Jinglian's expression was obviously very awkward. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly, and he snorted coldly. "What a coincidence! Are you on your honeymoon?" Mu Yaja nodded and didn't pay too much attention to him. He carried Yueyao to the seat, and then began to urge the little guys to fasten their seatbelts. As the parent of 4 children, Mu Yaja was very busy. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, was sitting on a chair and eating the fruit salad that Mu Yaja had bought for her at the airport. The Siren's Hotel was the most luxurious hotel in Saipan. The hotel provided seaside vacation villas. Each villa faced the sea and had a large private sea area. Living in such a villa could be said to be looking forward to a perfect vacation. However, the cost of a perfect vacation was not discounted. The cost of this villa was about 500,000 yuan per night. Mu Yaja booked a villa by the sea so that he could have a quiet vacation. On the other hand, Mu Yaja didn't expect that Gu Jinglian would book a villa next to him. It was also a villa by the sea. He didn't expect to be neighbors on vacation. Mu Yaja lifted the curtains of the floor-to-ceiling window of the master suite, opened the window, and walked out to the balcony. He happened to see Gu Jinglian leaning against the railing and smoking on the balcony opposite. The two men looked at each other silently again. Obviously, they didn't expect that they would book a villa next door to the hotel for their vacation. It was simply like a ghost that won't go away. Like a ghost that won't go away. The two men said almost at the same time. Then, as soon as they finished speaking, they stared at each other with disdain. Gu Jinglian put out the cigarette butt and turned to enter the room. Chapter 4168. This guy was really extraordinarily difficult to deal with. They had just gotten off the plane and everyone was very tired. Moreover, they were still jet-lagged. Hence, the four little brats were extremely sleepy when they checked into the hotel. After Xianxia coaxed them into bed, she finally had some time alone with Mu Yaja. Mu Yaja used the rest of his energy to spend a sweet night with her. After that, the two of them hugged each other contentedly and fell asleep. Meanwhile, in the villa next door, Chu Ho and Gu Jinglian had extraordinary energy. Chu Ho had just checked into the hotel when Xiao Bao complained that he was sleepy. Due to the time difference in the country, it was already late at night when they arrived at the hotel. Hence, Chu Ho coaxed Xiao Bao to sleep. Lin Shi, on the other hand, was able to adapt to the time difference. Hence, Chu Ho and Gu Jinglian took Lin Shi to the beach for a walk. Stepping on the fine sand and kicking the waves, Chu Ho held Gu Jinglian's hand and enjoyed a rare moment of peace. Ever since she gave birth to the twins, Chu Ho felt that she was almost squeezed dry by the two little brats during the breastfeeding period. Ordinary people would not understand the torment of the breastfeeding period. Even after the breastfeeding period, the children still needed someone to accompany them. They would always wake up crying every day and it was torturous. She loved and hated these two little brats at the same time. She loved them because they were her biological children after all. As a mother, how could she not love them? She hated them because Chu Ho was deeply tortured by these two little crybabies. Hence, she had to quickly escape for a period of time to avoid trouble. Now, she finally had some peace. Although it would be a lie to say that she did not miss them, she felt more relaxed than ever. Gu Jinglian also felt sorry for her. He knew that she had been busy for a long time after the breastfeeding period for the four children. When he saw this, he also felt sorry for her. Hence, he put the honeymoon on the agenda so that she could relax for a period of time. After all, she could not put the cart before the horse and confuse the meaning of marriage for the sake of the children after marriage. Other than family, marriage was more about the feelings between husband and wife. During that period of time, he was busy with work and rarely spent time with her. Thus, he thought of using the honeymoon as an opportunity to make up for their relationship. He thought that she would feel sleepy after the plane landed. However, he was wrong. Who is Chu Ho? She used to be an Interpol anti-crime inspector, and her physical fitness was much better than many men. It just so happened that Gu Jinglian was not tired. Chu Ho even teased him. After all, he was an old man. How could he be so good at enduring jet lag? Gu Jinglian was a little unhappy when he heard this. What do you mean an old man? He was clearly still very young, all right? Gu Jinglian was a little unhappy, so he whispered in her ear, "You dare to doubt my physical fitness? I'll teach you a lesson tonight." When Chu Ho heard this, his face turned slightly red, but he laughed helplessly. "I was just joking, and you actually took it seriously. Are you a child?" "Yes, I'm childish. I'm hopeless." When Chu Ho heard this, she could not do anything about it. Just as she was laughing, Gu Jinglian walked over and gently held her hand. "Do you like it here?" Gu Jinglian's voice became gentle. Chu Ho said sincerely, I like it. It's very quiet. Even with the sea breeze, I can feel my heart calming down. Then we can come here often in the future. Chapter 4169. No, I won't. Gu Jinglian said, I want to buy a villa here. In the future, when we have time, we can still come over and play for as long as we want. As long as you like it. Chu Ho couldn't help but feel a little flattered. Although Gu Jinglian doted on her immensely after their marriage, it was a little too much for him to say that he wanted to buy a villa here just because she said that she liked it here. Chu Ho asked tentatively, the villas here should be very expensive, right? I heard that some of the private islands here can be sold. Chu Ho was speechless when she heard this. I heard that the villas here are very expensive. A private island must be very expensive. Gu Jinglian smiled and said, if you like it, it has its value. Chu Ho couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. Actually, there's no need for that. As long as you have the intention. If you want to come here again in the future, you can just find another chance to come. How many more chances will you have to come here in the future? This money is too extravagant and wasteful. Gu Jinglian didn't think much of it when he heard this, but he didn't take it too seriously. After all, Chu Ho was Chu Ho and he was him. There was a huge gap between the two people's spending habits. Xiao Bao had once had a very difficult time. That was a period when she only had a basic salary of $2,000 a month and a few $100s of overtime pay, but she had to raise Xiao Bao alone. One could imagine how difficult that period of time was. When she was young, Chu Ho had also experienced a homeless life. She had stayed in a refugee camp and even a small piece of bread had to be taken from others. Sometimes she could only snatch scraps. As a result, she could only endure a night of hunger. Therefore, she had always thought that money was very precious. After marrying Gu Jinglian, she could be said to have reached the heavens in a single bound. What did it mean to become rich overnight? This was it. Gu Jinglian was very wealthy. Even Gu Jinglian didn't know how much wealth he had. However, she couldn't get used to living an extravagant life. She was an optimistic person by nature and was good at finding joy in hardship. She was used to living a hard life and always felt that she was very poor psychologically. Living a down-to-earth life made her feel at ease. Chu Ho was a very independent woman and didn't like to rely on others. Gu Jinglian didn't allow her to go out to work because he thought that the Gu family's business. However, Chu Ho wasn't used to living and took a long time to get used to it. Gu Jinglian was different. When he was in the past, he was in primary school. Gu's family was a state. Old Master Gu was willing to give him more than $100 bills a day. This was a treatment that no one else had ever received. Teet. The difference could be seen at a glance. Therefore, Gu Jinglian, who grew up in a privileged environment, naturally didn't have the concept of money. To him, a Gucci bag that cost tens of thousands of dollars was equivalent to lunch in the eyes of ordinary people. Ever since she married Gu Jinglian, Chu Ho's words and actions gave Gu Jinglian a headache. Chapter 4170. She was addicted to online shopping. Ever since she learned how to shop online, she was used to going online to search for quality goods. She would buy them in bulk. Gu Jinglian went to the mall to buy her a few luxurious clothes, bags, and shoes. Gucci, Christina, etc. However, Chu Ho did not want them after wearing them a few times. She was too lazy to dress herself up. Those branded clothes and bags were often the most useless. Especially a silk dress from Chanel. Just a slight movement of the arm would cause it to unravel. Chu Ho despised it. How could such expensive clothes be so useless? Although she knew that people who could afford such expensive clothes would not be calculative about such things, she still despised it. As a woman, she actually complained to Gu Jinglian that she had spent so much time shopping and spent so much energy just to buy a few clothes that could not be worn more than a few times. She felt very angry. After that, Gu Jinglian did not force her anymore. Since two people were married, they should respect each other. It was basic respect. They respected the concept of consumption. Therefore, after Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho got married, he followed her when it came to the concept of consumption. Even his own concept of consumption was gradually influenced by her. In layman's terms, old Master Gu had become much more down-to-earth. In the past, he did not want luxury goods. Now, when he occasionally received clothes that Chu Ho bought for him online, he would be happy to try them on. If they looked good, he would buy them back. After a while, Gu Jinglian also got used to clothes that cost a few hundred yuan. One had to know that to him, clothes that cost a few hundred yuan were no different from clothes that cost a few cents in the eyes of ordinary people. In short, the huge difference in concept caused by money was very big. Both of them could adapt very well. Gu Jinglian held Chu Ho's hand and walked quietly by the beach. Gu Linshi was originally following behind them. However, when he found something new and pestered them to look at it, he bitterly realized that he had been abandoned. No matter whether he called out to Gu Jinglian or Chu Ho, the two of them acted as if they did not hear him. They only had eyes for each other. They had already forgotten about him, this little third wheel. Gu Linshi also gave up. But forget it. Let the two of them be entangled. After all, she heard that Dad wanted to take this opportunity to revisit the honeymoon period with Mom. He didn't want to get involved. Gu Linshi was smart, so she went back to the hotel alone and called Gu Jinglian, Chu Ho. He was more sensible. He quietly returned to the hotel and even knew to send a text message so that they wouldn't worry. Chu Ho and Gu Jinglian walked for a long time, but they did not seem to notice anything. After walking for a long time, Chu Ho realized that his little tail was gone. He took out his phone and was about to make a call when he received a message from Gu Linshi. Seeing that he had returned to the hotel, Chu Ho's heart was filled with guilt. She had been so focused on walking and chatting with Gu Jinglian that she had forgotten about this guy. Gu Jinglian said helplessly, "It's okay. Linshi is very old. He has his own thoughts. I think he wants to give us more space." On the surface, he said this, but in his heart, he was criticizing this kid. At least he knew what was good for him. Just now, when Linshi called out to him, he heard it but deliberately ignored it. He thought that if this kid knew what he was doing, he would not disturb them anymore. Obviously, this kid knew what he was doing. Chapter 4171. Chu Ho said to Gu Jinglian, "Why don't we go back earlier too? Don't be too late. The children are already awake, but we're still asleep. If the children want to play, we won't have the energy to do so." However, Gu Jinglian said, "Lin Shi is already so old. He'll definitely bring Xiaobao to play. We might not like the things that children like to play. Why don't we let them play while we go on our honeymoon?" Chu Ho was speechless. So they were really here to make up for their honeymoon? Chu Ho muttered, "Don't tell me, you didn't want to bring them along in the first place?" At the mention of this, Gu Jinglian was very displeased. He didn't even mention this to Lin Shi and Xiaobao. It was Chu Ho who had spoken out of turn and told Lin Shi. Lin Shi thought that Gu Jinglian wanted them to go on a vacation together, so he told Xiaobao excitedly. In the end, Gu Jinglian happened to see that the two of them had already started to pack their luggage in full swing. What else could he say? He could only suppress his anger and pack the two of them up. However, Lin Shi was still considered tactful. On the plane, he took the initiative to take care of Xiaobao. If anything happened to Xiaobao, he would take care of it. Gu Jinglian was quite satisfied with this. When they returned to the hotel, Lin Shi was already asleep. Xiaobao was also sound asleep. Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho were affectionate for a while before they couldn't resist the fatigue and fell asleep. The next day, Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho woke up and walked to the other bedroom to take a look. They found that Lin Shi and Xiaobao were not there. When they asked about room, the cleaner from Room Clean said that the two children had run to the beach to play volleyball as soon as they woke up. However, the cleaner also mentioned that the 4 children in the other row were also there. The group split into 2 groups and played beach volleyball. Gu Jinglian found it interesting. It had to be said that these 2 guys really knew how to entertain themselves. Seeing that they didn't wake up, Lin Shi took Xiaobao to play. After Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho ate some food and headed to the beach, they saw Gu Linshi and Xiaobao standing on an empty beach. Opposite them were Yu and Lisa. The 4 players glared at each other. The ball was in Lin Shi's hands, but Gu Jinglian's eyes were sharp. He could feel that Lin Shi's hands were trembling slightly. Chu Ho also noticed this and walked over worriedly. When Lin Shi heard this, he turned around. When he saw them, he was a little surprised. Dad, Mom. As soon as Xiaobao turned around and saw Chu Ho holding his wrist, he immediately threw himself into her arms, feeling wronged. Mom. Ooh. The little guy was bluffing and crying, but he didn't cry for real. Although he felt wronged, he wasn't so weak that he would cry. They're bullying us. Ooh. Bullying? That's impossible. She knew Wuxia and Yun Xiaoxia's characters. She had met them a few times before, and she could tell that the couple was very well-mannered. When it came to educating children, they were naturally well-mannered. How could they bully other people's children? Don't listen to his nonsense. Lin Shi sighed and mumbled in a low voice. They're not bullying us. We can't play as well as others. What's wrong? Chu Ho finally understood. You lost to them in volleyball? Chapter 4172. If it's just a loss, then it's fine. Lin Shi said awkwardly, I can catch the ball, but it's too strong. If I insist on catching it, then my wrist will feel a burning pain. Chu He's face was full of questions. He looked at the other side. Yu and Lisa. Both of them were still young and one of them was a girl. Yu was younger than Lin Shi. He looked at Lisa, whom he had never seen before, but she looked thin and weak. Chu Ho could not believe it. It can't be. You actually lost to them? One of them is younger than you and the other is a girl. She's so skinny, how can she be so strong? Xiaobao panicked. It's true. She's so strong. I saw her wearing a singlet just now. Don't be fooled by her skinny figure. She's got muscles underneath. Lin Shi was indignant. After all, as a boy, losing to a girl was an embarrassing thing. However, whether he was willing to admit it or not, it was the truth. Lisa did not like to talk, but whenever she jumped up and spiked the ball, he was worried that she would accidentally hit the volleyball. Xiaobao had caught her ball once and was so scared that he started trembling. He did not dare to catch her ball again. Lin Shi was naturally unwilling to admit defeat. Hence, when it was Lisa's turn to hit the ball, even if he knew that she was strong, he would still try to catch it. When he caught the ball, both his wrists were trembling badly. He was afraid that he would not be able to continue playing. Lisa also realized that Lin Shi would not be able to catch her ball. She felt that it was boring and a little disappointing, so she stopped playing. However, they were halfway through the game and the winner had not been decided yet. Lin Shi refused to admit defeat, nor did he want to admit defeat, so he insisted on continuing. Lisa did not know whether to laugh or cry. She asked him instead, Can you continue playing? Lin Shi bit his lip hard and did not speak. At this moment, Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho arrived. To be honest, he probably couldn't continue fighting. Otherwise, his wrist would definitely swell up. However, he did not want to lose to a girl. He was a boy and Lisa was a girl. If he had lost to Yu, it would have been fine. However, he could not accept losing to Lisa. Lisa rubbed her hair helplessly and said seriously, To be honest, I admit defeat. We can't continue this match. You're injured. So, Lisa casually threw the volleyball to the side and stretched her body. She had only used a third of her strength when she was playing volleyball, but the two kids couldn't take it anymore. Normally, people with great strength wouldn't know how to control their strength even if they wanted to deliberately conserve it. Because for Lisa, she was already cautious enough. Lisa even had the illusion that Lin Shi and Xiaobao were glass dolls that would break if they were not careful. Lin Shi was unwilling to give up. She pursed her lips and looked unhappy. Chu Ho was a little curious. How terrifying was her strength that even Lin Shi was injured. She suddenly took a step forward and looked at Lisa's back. She smiled and said, Why don't we play a game? Lisa came back to her senses and looked at her in surprise. Why? I want to see how strong you are. Lisa's lips twitched when she heard that. Chu Ho hurriedly said, Don't worry, I just want to learn from you. I'm not seeking revenge, all right? Chapter 4173. The corners of Yu's lips twitched. He could vaguely feel that there was a hint of tension in the volleyball match. Lisa said to him, Go to one side. I'll have a match with her. This? Xiao Yichen thought to himself helplessly. Is there really a point to this match? No matter who wins, it won't be a dignified victory, right? Lisa would still be fine. If Chu Ho won, he would think that she was an adult and would stoop to the level of a child. If she lost, he would think that it was too embarrassing for an adult to lose to a child. Lin, she said hesitantly, forget it, I admit defeat. Don't misunderstand. With a smile on her face, Chu He walked to Lin Shi's side and picked up the volleyball from the ground. Dusting off the sand on it, she said with a smile, I just wanted to see how strong a girl can be to almost hurt a boy's hand. Lisa was expressionless when she heard this. He was the one who wanted to play with me. I saw that he was injured and didn't want to play anymore. He doesn't want to admit defeat. Lisa was naturally competitive, especially in a situation where she could win. She would never admit defeat unless someone had the ability to convince her. Then, can you let me have a taste of your skills? Chu Ho asked tentatively. Lisa was in a daze. She felt that the face in front of her seemed familiar. Vermilion bird? A noun flashed through her mind. There was a vermilion bird in the hurricane group. There was also a vermilion bird in the International Criminal Police Organization. One was a black vermilion bird while the other was a white vermilion bird. Everyone used this name to distinguish between the two. Lisa was a junior and had never seen white vermilion bird in person. However, she remembered seeing a picture of white vermilion bird. She was smiling and her eyes were full of confidence. She looked very similar to the woman in front of her. She couldn't help but feel suspicious. Just as she was in a daze, Chu Ho couldn't help but remind her, Are you ready? Lisa immediately reacted. She took half a step back and bowed slightly. She immediately returned to her battle stance. Chu Ho served. She held the volleyball up high and made a standard serve. The volleyball flew over the railing. Lisa's reaction was quick. Like a cat, she darted forward and used her considerable jumping ability to hit the volleyball back. A special volleyball match was about to begin. Wuxia and Xianxia came back from their walk on the beach and saw this scene. Hua Jin, who was following behind her, saw it as well. Of Xiao Yichen and Yu were still asleep, and Xiao Yichen and Yu were still asleep. Of Xiao Yichen and of Yu of them. Of course. Xiao Yichen and Yu of Yu's aunts. And Yu. After taking a stroll around the area, they were greeted by such a sight as soon as they returned. Everyone found it a little novel. Xianxia was a little surprised. What are they doing? Volleyball. But Xianxia and Hua Jin stared blankly at the two people who were in full swing. The sound of the volleyball hitting the ball was shocking. This volleyball is too scary. Wuxia thought it was interesting. Let's go and take a look. The group walked to the side. Xiao Yichen noticed them. Wuxia gestured for him to keep quiet and watched silently. Chu Ho and Lisa were evenly matched. One was a former Interpol officer, while the other was the youngest mercenary in Mercenary Paradise. Both of them were terrifyingly strong.